Sounds good.
Hello and welcome to the Destiny Community Podcast number 84. We have a really exciting episode because, a few things are going on in the Destiny universe. Warmind kicked off, which I'm very, very excited about. And Pope is going to pick it up right here. And right here. I'm trying to.
We're gonna do it live.
I'm trying to have as awkward of an intro as possible to keep a legacy going. You know.
I can appreciate you trying, Tefty, but no matter how hard you try, you're still smoother.
I got to put more effort.
Too smooth. You got to get rid of that radio voice. Get rid of it.
Move away from the
right.
And get off.
I got to get lazy. Just be like,
and then just be like,
Wait. Also, where's Holtz?
Well,
where's Holtz?
Holtz? Yeah. Well, Holtz is actually he joined the rodeo.
Oh, okay.
And
fun.
Yeah, he's on the rodeo circuit, and
is he a clown or is he going to be riding
He's actually, they're doing a crossover. He's a clown riding a bull.
Oh, interesting.
I need to see. I need to see YouTube footage of this right away. If anybody got
there will be somebody posting it shortly. Well, we're excited because we have two guests here tonight from Bungie. We have John Wisniewski.
Hello.
And Josh Hamrick.
Hello.
All right. So
jazz hands.
Jazz hands. So why don't you tell our listeners what do you guys do at Bungie?
We're both on the gameplay design team, also known as the sandbox design team. I've been mostly working on weapons for the lifespan of Destiny, but also have my fingers in various pies around.
What is the sandbox? Like when you say sandbox?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked that before. Sandbox is I think it's only a term I've heard at Bungie, but I think I've heard other studios use it before. But it's kind of like the idea of you think about like an actual sandbox with little kids playing in it. And then there's a bunch of toys and sand. And that's sort of like the idea behind it. It was sort of a term that originated for the team back in Halo, where if you think about like a Halo encounter or environment space, there's just like a whole bunch of stuff that's there, and it's kind of up to the player how they want to play that experience, right? So it's like maybe I just want to spawn in with my AR and my pistol and just like run through because I love those things, and I don't pick up any guns. Or maybe I love the needler, so I'm gonna find the jackals with the needler and take them out and grab that gun. Or like I'm a vehicle guy, like I want to make sure I find a ghost, and like so there's like this kind of the idea of like the sandbox team at Bungie has been the people who make the stuff that players use to play with / express power into the world.
Mm-hmm. I've always said there's a button on the controller. We probably had something to do with it. Right? Yeah, we're like we handle all the verbs that the player can do. Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about how what's unique about Bungie games, Halo and now Destiny, is the feel of the gunplay. Like,
I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah,
you didn't let Josh introduce himself.
You really
oh my goodness! Well,
we thought you guys were just
really
the same.
Disappointed.
You're just Bungie, right?
Just Bungie. Tell us about Bungie.
Thank you very much, John. Josh, tell us about yourself.
It's too late, Pope.
Damn it.
Everybody, I'm Josh Hamrick. I am the sandbox design lead, or the gameplay design lead at Bungie. And a long time ago, I joined the gameplay team working on Halo way back in the day, and made a bunch of weapons and tuned vehicles and abilities, and have done that ever since through the Destiny franchise.
Did you work on the battle rifle?
Touched a bunch of systems. Nope, that was after my time. I worked on the DMR.
I love the DMR.
Bloom or no bloom?
The DMR is so good.
You don't. Are we trying to start a war? You don't want to answer that, Bill. That's just the DMR. I worked on the DMR.
Did you put Bloom? Did you put Bloom into the DMR? Are you responsible for my headshots missing?
I want to know
reach?
Bloom on DMR and armor lock. Those are the two things I need to know about tonight.
We're gonna have a long discussion about.
Yeah, please.
I'm just kidding. I really don't want to know the answer to this.
It's better for everybody. Yeah.
If you did make armor lock, let's just say that you didn't make armor lock. Okay. Yeah.
You know what? A lot of people love Armor Lock. So maybe we should say,
You know what?
It's just, there you go.
There's always places in hell that are reserved for people. You know, it's okay.
Hey, as a Warthog driver, I learned to despise the Armor Lock perk, but I'm sure there's a ton of people, like 3 or 4, that really loved it. And,
a handful
used it.
Yeah.
That's right.
They were the trolls of the Destiny or the Halo universe.
Those people now play Sea of Thieves.
So for both of you guys, especially both of you guys, so you both talked about Halo. Are those the games you got into game development in? Was it Bungie franchise and or was there something that you've done before that?
John has been around forever, so I'll go first because it's going to take him a while. I started at Midway Austin and worked on a classic called Black Site Area 51 with Harvey Smith. I actually worked with a bunch of really incredible people on a fairly terrible game. Yeah, and then after that, I worked on a couple of projects that got canned at Midway before they died the ultimate death, and then ended up at Bungie after that.
Cool.
I started in the games industry in 1998. I heard through a friend of mine that you could get a job testing video games for Nintendo. And once I heard that, that became my ultimate focus. Is all I wanted to do. And I got a job testing video games for Nintendo. The first game I worked on was Mario Tennis for the N64.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your testing of that. Like what did that
I love that game.
So this was back in the day. This is like 98 when like game testing was a relatively new thing. And I was a contractor at Nintendo of America. And so that meant you were like one of hundreds of people who just sort of got farmed in, and you got a cubicle and a machine. And this was back, nobody had a PC at their desk. You had a CRT TV and a dev kit N64 that was literally under lock and key. So your full-time Nintendo test lead would come over and unlock the box that held your dev kit, put in the ROM of the game, and then lock it and walk away, because they like trusted nobody, because it was this full contract workforce. You're like one of hundreds of people who just get shuffled in, and nobody had a PC, so all our bug reports were handwritten. So you actually like wrote it down on a piece of paper and then submitted it, and then you had a VCR to tape record. So like part of your job was to note the bug time stamp from the VCR on the piece of paper, and that was part of your submission.
Oh my
god!
at
the end of the day, you stacked a stack of video cassettes on the desk, and they would have these like video cassette stacks that are like super high. And then those poor guys would work crazy overtime. Actually, they would take the videos off the VHS and like put them into clips and compile them into bug reports. And
wow!
Oh my god!
That's some analog game capture. That's amazing.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
How many hours would you have to like test a game like Mario Tennis?
The purpose of a production facility like NOA to bring in a bunch of contract testers is at the end of a dev cycle. So you are basically they're basically just like trying to solve the problem that we have a lot, which is like finding all the bugs with math, right? Just like the more people we can throw at a thing, the more likely we are to find all the bugs. So we're pretty late in the dev cycle, which meant that you're crunching. So yeah, like it was expected that at minimum you'd work a 40-hour week, and then it'd go anywhere from like 80 to over 100 hours a week.
Wow.
That's pretty insane.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so the game's progressed quite a bit since then, right? I mean, game development has progressed.
Mario Tennis, yeah, it's way better now.
You have actual computers now for logging bugs. Pretty useful, right?
Yeah.
Update 1.4 for Mario Tennis was game changing.
Yeah.
1.1.4 was even better, but
yeah. When they took care of Yoshi's backhand, the game got way better, a little more balanced.
Yeah, what's funny is like today, if somebody were to swipe a piece of hardware, you'd see it on eBay right away. There was no eBay back then, right? That was just around the corner. So
I don't think so.
So even if you did get like a development kit for Nintendo 64, like, what would you do with it then?
You gotta go to the.
You'd have to sell it on CompuServe.
Yeah.
I mean, they were worth
Civic with the back open.
Log into Prodigy.
Yeah, very expensive.
Back in the day, dev kits were super expensive. I think they still are now, right?
They're not cheap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Interesting.
So you guys worked through Halo and into Destiny, and I've always been curious about the development cycle or the early stages of Destiny when it was a concept and you guys were like formatting what it was going to become. What role does Sandbox play in that conversation where it's like, it's going to be, we know now what it is, a looter shooter with, space and combat, space magic and all that stuff. But it wasn't originally, like, there was a lot of really crazy ideas out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big idea that could have gone a bunch of different ways, and you sort of just start with like, here's the the horizon looks like this. Let's try to get to there. And in the case of Sandbox, back then it was just Sage and I on the Sandbox team. It was a matter of like, okay, well we know we want RPG mechanics, so then that means I think we're gonna want classes and we're gonna want abilities of things to do, and we know we're gonna need weapons. So I took basically the standard archetypical weapons and built them out first. So we have one of every gun. And then, we had crazy ideas for what would eventually become the class layout over time. Eventually, like Danny Bulla would join the team and help define what classes were. We pulled John onto the team to help me with weapon stuff. But yeah, it's a slow, like you build a thing and you play it and you realize what it is and what it's not. And you tear it apart and rebuild it and go back and forth. And the idea for weapons in Destiny started as what we called a personal weapon that was just like, hey, what if one of your guns you could tweak to be whatever you wanted? And then I built this crazy spreadsheet thing out that let you try those stats. Like, here's all the breakdown of stats that you could change on a weapon that makes it feel totally different. We still use that today to build our weapons, but like instead of a single gun, it is every gun. I still remember that conversation, right? And it was like, what if we did this for every gun? I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. Let me get back to you, right? And there's things like rocket launchers and stuff that the stats aren't the same as assault rifles and things like that. So we had to work through it, but eventually it's like, yeah, I think this could work. And if we did it, wow, we could make guns forever. Like, this is crazy. And then, the idea of perks came along, and then it just sort of stacks on itself, right? It's interesting how it comes together. I think some games don't give the time to do that, and so your horizon is probably a lot clearer when you get started, hopefully, and you just sort of build towards it. But in the case of Destiny, we layered stuff, and then we pull away something, and then like build on top of that. That feels better, and then try the next layer of foundation. No, that didn't work. Try this. No, that didn't work. Oh, that feels good, right? We just kept stacking stuff.
About how long was that process of time that you're talking about how much time in the development? Do you got any idea?
I mean, like 3 years.
When did we ship Reach? Is that
2010?
2010. Then Destiny 1 launched in 2014.
14, yeah.
So
that's crazy, man.
Destiny 1 had been in development by a small chunk of the studio while the rest of the studio was finishing Reach.
Like, they were talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, they were
And
like,
then
they knew what they want. That's where the horizon, right, was
Yeah.
getting like, oh, I think we want to make a game sort of like this.
and then Reach finished and the whole team moved
And
over
then
to
we
Destiny.
tried to make it,
Yeah.
which was interesting because that was a lot of people being thrown at a thing that wasn't entirely clear.
Yeah.
And so as the game starts to take shape and you start adding people to your teams, right? How do you get somebody on board? Because now your Sandbox team is it's you got a good sized team, right?
Yeah, we're pretty big.
Now we do, yeah.
7 or 8 people. Yeah.
Yeah, like how was the journey going from basically trying out things, trying to figure out the variables that you wanted in the system for the sandbox to actually fleshing it out to where a lot of people are on board and understanding, okay, this is the sandbox. Like, how did you guys connect those dots where it's like conceiving it to actually it's implemented and people understand what's going on as a team?
I mean, it's super iterative, and we used we did a lot of PvP testing because that's the thing that we could get off the ground the fastest. Like putting, you didn't have to build encounters, the combatants didn't have to be done, you didn't have to have super custom spaces to play through. Like you could just put a bunch of people, like you literally, this is one of our maps. You could put a bunch of people on like in a forest that had a couple of trees and like a building in the center and like play around that, right? And so you can kind of get an idea of what is fun and what isn't fun. Because
Interesting.
if you're not like, that should be able to become fun, at least entertaining fairly quickly if what you're doing is going to be a thing or not. And then we would just try stuff. And even when we thought we might have a good answer, especially in the early days, we would kind of keep like, yeah, this is interesting, but maybe we'll come back to it. Let's go this way and see what happens when we push on it from this side, right? What does it look like if you could pick every ability, like if you had X number of open places on your controller and you could map anything at any given time, like what does that feel like? Oh, it turns out people complain they don't have a melee, but they didn't pick their melee, right? But they're mad anyway. So we got to give them a melee. We got to give them a melee. Okay. Right. Like, and so it's things like that you just sort of work through and see how people react to it and then make changes and keep going. It's super, super iterative. And eventually it builds, like you get, you start leaving things behind. When it almost happens in a way that you can't see it happening, right? Like things start to firm and become real, and you think they're probably still very fake until 3 months down the road, and you realize you hadn't changed something in a while. And you're like, oh,
interesting.
This might be real.
Yeah.
How early?
So, yeah, it's just a lot of building blocks that build on top of each other. During that time where Josh was doing all the designing, I was still in test, and I was basically like the dedicated tester for Sandbox, so also test lead. So like I would get all their changes on a day-to-day basis, both the designers and the programmers, and then like use test maps to sort of like check them out every single day and like, okay, give them real-time feedback, like this feels bad, this feels good, you have bugs here. And then also thinking about like in the future, like, okay, how am I going to build a test plan for this? Like how, like once we're going to staff up and I'm going to have a team of people working on this stuff, like coming up with a test pass and sort of like coming up with risk areas. So that was really exciting from that end too, like to see those changes come in every day. And like I still remember when like the physics model first got set up, we had a test map where I'm like you're just a dumb guardian, like running around, like going up ramps, going upstairs, like jumping up a little like half circle, like half pipe type thing, and sort of like helping the engineers iron out like how the physics are going to work in the game. And there was one milestone where you guys checked in a whole bunch of stuff one night, and I was working late, and I played a test map that had some. This is a test map / prototype area that it ended up becoming one of the main spaces in Venus of Destiny 1. And I remember like launching up the build that night and playing it, and like all this stuff was there. Like I had a Titan. He had an auto rifle and a fusion rifle that I could swap between. He had Fist of Havoc, he had shoulder charge, and he had a grenade and a power melee. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And there's like a bunch of Fallen in the space. And it was like the first time that like the game was like really coming together. Like not the whole game, right? But just the action experience was like there. And I made a video. I was just like, oh, I'm just going to record my gameplay because it was just so cool. And I sent it out to the Sandbox team before I left for that night. And it went viral. I came back the next day, and like all these other people to see were like, dude, I saw your video. It's so cool, so crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome. It must be amazing to see the to finally see a vision like that come to life in a game, to where like lots of things have been concepts, lots of things have been kind of like prototyping, so on and so forth. And then finally you have a weapon in your hand, you can jump, you can melee, you can throw a grenade, and enemies die from it. That's got to be an amazing experience. Yeah,
it's really cool. It's like I said, you almost don't even realize you're there when it happens, and then you get down the road and realize, oh, that I started just playing. Like the moment you start testing a thing and you spend 30 minutes testing a thing that took you 5 minutes to test because you're just running around shooting and jumping and playing, like that's the sweet spot. That's when you know you have something, and those moments are pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's pretty obvious to hear in your voice, like you're that you guys are, how passionate you guys are about the game. You've been working on it for a long time now. One thing that hit me when we were at the Player Summit is, just how invested you guys were in, not from like that's your job kind of way, but in like the discussion of that players have in lobbies throughout the game was no different. It was just like we were now talking across the table to somebody who tweaks the levers and does the things that make the game happen. But you guys were just as passionate and involved in the game as we were, and I think that set the tone for that summit. And I was really happy to be a part of it, and really thankful that you guys came in that way, right? With that mindset, and that there wasn't going to be a divide between us. I love that.
Summit was great. It was super fun. And yeah, we play the game all the time, right? Like I stayed up way too late for multiple nights in a row now playing Warmind, right?
Yep.
That's what we do. And in fact, ironically, like some of the changes that I think you guys might even ask about over the course of the night that came in for Destiny 2 was us trying to I think was motivated from a good place of trying to be like, hey, what does it look like if you don't feel like you always only have to play Destiny, right? Because we were all only playing Destiny, right? We're like, I don't even play games anymore. I just go home and play Destiny, and then I come into work and I build Destiny, and then I go home and I play Destiny, right? Like, is that healthy? I don't know. And so, I think we're figuring out, like, you know what? I don't. Well, to be fair, I don't know if it is, but it sure is fun, right? And so, that's kind of the way we're.
I mean, you stepped away for a bit, right?
I did disappear into the ether for about a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're back. So
I'm back.
Yeah.
Speaking of the summit, we got a lot of kind of like all the community members that went to the summit came back and kind of gave us their impressions. Everybody seemed really positive about it. Can you guys give some of your impressions of like what you guys got out of that summit? And I know you probably can't talk about like changes that were made because of the summit, but just like overall, like kind of how it went and how you guys felt about it.
Yeah, it was. It was great. I find it always to be a very, very positive, awesome experience to talk about Destiny with a Destiny enthusiast, or someone who knows a lot about the game, and they've probably got all kinds of feedback and questions. So whether it's just like a random person I meet at a party, or if it's like a border customs agent who's ushering me in faster because he asked me where I work and I say Bungie, and he's like, "Oh, what class do you play?" Like whoever I end up talking
that
to.
Happened. That happened.
That totally happened. It's awesome. Yeah. I think that's always really positive. It's really positive for me to just hear like some raw feedback and emotions and like praise or complaints. And then I think it's always usually pretty positive for the other person to just, Josh will attest to this. I have no filter. Like I just I can keep an NDA, but at the same time, I'll just talk about the game, and I'll talk about design decisions, and I'll talk about what it's like to work here. And I don't really hold much back in that sense, and I think that's always usually pretty positive for someone who's having a one-on-one discussion. So yeah, for me, it was like 2 days of just getting to have these great conversations with a bunch of people who love the game, know a shit ton about it, and then also have really hard-hitting questions that can get us into like really interesting design discussions. And like sometimes the design discussion goes to me saying like, yeah, you're totally right. Like we could have handled that better. Or like, here's kind of an idea of where we were hoping to go and we didn't quite get there. And I realized that we failed to hit that goal, and we're like, hope we can get there someday. And then sometimes
what we were thinking at the time,
right?
Minimum.
Yeah. And then sometimes the conversation goes to like the other person saying like, oh, like this makes so much more sense to me now that I have a little bit more context in what you guys were thinking when you were like going in this direction. So I think it's just win-win both directions. So yeah, it's just like 2 days of having awesome conversations with Destiny.
Cool.
That's great.
Well, we that's a good segue into like conversations about where we are now, because at the summit we talked about Warmind as the next thing on the horizon, and it was really close to, in a lot of ways it was already completed. And a lot of the conversations talked about some future content coming in September, and what that was going to look like. But with Warmind, we were excited to talk to Vicarious Visions about their content that they produced for it. And one thing that they said that they kind of steeled me against being disappointed, but they said that Warmind was going to be a lot like in the size of Curse of Osiris, but I feel like the way it's playing out for me, at least, is it feels larger than that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if that's like, and I'm not necessarily talking about space or content wise, or like what you have to play in, but like it seems to be
Goals.
drawing out
There's a lot
how
more
much
goals.
time I can. Thank you.
Right.
So I feel like I'm connecting to the game, and I'm for some reason I'm at work and I'm thinking about playing Destiny when I get home, and I just didn't have that feeling in Curse of Osiris.
We didn't really have it in
I don't know.
D2 much in general, right? Like Warmind came out, and I'm going to bed like I'm real tired, but I gotta keep playing. I got more to do. I got stuff to do. I'm busy.
Yeah.
And
I gotta get into that escalation protocol. I gotta get that.
We gotta go.
That
We
new
gotta
shotgun. Gotta
Yeah.
do a raid so I can get up to 360.
There's so much more to do.
Catalyst.
That feeling of there's so much to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, even just
I still haven't gotten a catalyst.
I don't have
this
it
is- I got
either.
one.
I only got one for me.
I don't have it.
I got one for the hand cannon, the 3-burst exotic.
Crimson.
Someone actually
for
brought up-
Crimson. You got it for
For
Crimson.
Crimson.
Yeah,
Thanks. Yeah,
Crimson
thanks, Pope.
gun.
Someone said in
It's
chat
all
that I
right.
should bring
It's
up
all
to
right.
Bungie that to check if my account is bugged because I haven't had one bro. They're like,
No.
this is really bad.
Unless my
RNG.
account is bugged, so maybe we'll
It's
see.
really bad.
But that's one of the differences, though, it feels like right now compared to especially like vanilla Destiny when it first released, is that everything's not just being spoon fed to me as a player. It feels like I actually have to invest some time. I got to invest some effort, go out and get the best of the best, right? If I want to get that awesome pulse rifle, I'm going to have to work in the Crucible to get it. If I want to get an awesome shotgun, I'm going to have to work at Escalation Protocol to get it. If I want to get, if I want to upgrade my exotics to like the maximum potential, I'm going to have to work at it. And that's a really big change. Like, how's the feedback been from that so far?
It's mostly positive, but it's just been a couple days.
Right.
And so, I mean, we're
People
basically
seem excited.
like Tefty kind of just hit the nail on the head early, where it's like it's working towards goals, right? Like humans in general are super satisfied when they're working towards a goal. So now we have a whole bunch of goals to work towards, and that's satisfying. There's some like RNG systems in there now, so like you guys just illustrated some of the pitfalls with RNG, right? Like it feels like I can never get the thing I want, but it's out there, so you can work towards it and try and achieve those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What world did you guys play in? So from Summit and you made some adjustments to Warmind's sandbox. What changes made it into Warmind sandbox wise?
The big one was the sniper rifle fix. So we found a gnarly bug that we had shipped in D2 that was pretty deep in there and had affected how it changed the way that snipers reacted to incoming fire and the way that they kicked around. But additionally, it totally broke our pipeline for being able to tune those things. So I don't know if you guys remember what we put out. I think the first update we did for Sandbox was in December, and we were like, we tuned sniper rifle stuff. And then some of them did get different. Some of them got better, but like they all sort of reacted differently to that change. And in some of our cases that we were testing with got a little bit better, but some of them got worse, and some of them just didn't change at all. And so we dug into that and figured out, there's this bug and it's gross. Can we get it fixed like in the next month? And it's like, no. Can we get it fixed in 3 months? Probably not, right? Like, okay, so it's bad. It's really bad.
What team are you talking to? What team are you talking to when you have that conversation?
It was a combination of there was a little bit of engineering and there was a lot of art.
Yeah, it was a lot of art. So we were mostly talking to the 3D art team who actually builds the models for the gun. Right. And the bug was in, so the UI HUD that happens when you zoom into a sniper is we do this like magic trick where the camera shifts and the camera zooms out. So it looks like the gun's coming towards you, but the camera's zooming out. And then at some point the gun disappears and we overlay these like layers of cards. Basically, they're like 2D cards, but they get layered in, so it looks like you're looking through a sniper scope. And the bug originated from the PC SKU, where
most of our bugs originated from
frames.
So basically, like during development of Destiny 2, when the PC was coming online, one of our 3D artists is a guy named Jesse. He's amazing.
He's incredible.
Love this guy, and he's actually kind of like a scope specialist. Like most of the scopes. Briar, you have an insect about to devour your face.
You have Mothra coming to attack you.
He's sort of like our just ninja guy for scopes. Like he's just really good at doing scopes. And so he was playing the PC SKU, and he's got a monitor at his desk that's like this wide.
And curved.
It's insane.
It's glorious.
And so he's playing the PC SKU, and he realizes that all the sniper scopes, the cards that we had used previously, aren't wide enough to cover this up. So you zoom into a sniper, and then you see like the targeting thing, and then you see the like that outlying ring of the scope, and then it's black, but it's a black box, and then it just cuts off, and you can see the rest of the environment on the outside. It's like,
really? Scope's green screen when he was setting it up, or Pope's green screen when he was setting up, and he didn't know we were talking about it. Yeah. When he also had on the green hoodie, and we were trying to tell him that was a bad idea.
So was it still zoomed out, like outside of the sniper scope?
Yeah, it was still zoomed.
So it kind of looked like very cartoony, like someone had just held up like a black square for you to look through.
Look at the
screen. You could totally like see around it. And so he saw that, and he's like, oh my god, we need to fix this. And so not super late in the game, but like not early. We had to do a bunch of work on how those UI elements line up together. And something unforeseen happened there, where when you're zoomed in with a sniper and you get shot with a bullet, the way those cards animate with the aim deflection camera kicking that we do just goes insane. Like they just like went all over the place, and it made it feel like Bungie intentionally made it punishing to look down a sniper scope and get hit. That was never the intent, and it is unfortunate and probably on our team that shipped. Right, that nobody had the time to do a deep dive, but like I said, it was not early in the project; it was pretty late. So,
and it didn't affect every sniper in the same way.
That's
which
right.
Was also like the key thing there, which made it. That's actually what made it so hard to find, and he had to go back through every scope in the game and modify them, which is why it took forever. While also continuing to build content for coming releases, right?
So when he's doing that, does he have like a set of defined scopes that then also work with the different guns, or does each scope kind of get tuned for each model, for each weapon archetype type of thing?
It's on a per scope basis.
Yeah.
So he'll like focus really hard on a scope, and then not a lot of stuff on our weapons is really modular, but scopes are very modular. So you can take any scope and basically put it on any weapon model. And that whole experience of like holding down left trigger and then doing the camera zoom, lining up the scope with the sights, that's all done independently of the weapon.
Got it. Interesting.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
so there's that. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh no!
I realized I didn't finish answering your question. And
no, I just wanted to hear from John. Really, I mean.
There's the exotic update, obviously.
That's what I was gonna go into.
Yeah,
exotics.
Graviton lands.
I feel like there was one more thing we fixed that we realized we had left out of the patch notes.
So there's a couple little fixes in there.
Well, I want to focus on the exotics, and I'm going to give you my super professional, in-depth, breakdown of the exotics. Holy shit, they're fun!
So much better.
Tractor Cannon's the best gun in the game.
Yeah. So
Tractor Cannon is mega fun.
Tractor Cannon's awesome.
Tractor Cannon.
Darcy.
I feel like there's like a backhanded question in here, like there's like some sort of knife about to come out.
Can we
like,
just
why
gush
weren't
about
they fun in the first place?
Yeah, I want to hear about.
I just want to say real quick that I had completely forgotten about Darcy. Darcy was one of those things where like I had legendaries, and then there was this other gun that I would never even think about. And now it's like it's absolutely with me every single time because it's incredible. The way it feels, the way the damage is, it's satisfying. Like
it makes me laugh and giggle.
Yeah,
literally, it's so fun. Same with the Tractor Cannon, like Watts said. There's a bunch.
And I love it that it changes the way that you play the game. Like you build a class around the exotic, and that's the way that I felt exotics should always affect the game. What I wanted to talk to you about the tuning of the exotics. How did you choose which exotics you were gonna go after, and what was the process like in deciding, like, for example, Graviton Lance, right? You talked a little bit about it let's use another one because you talked about it in a past TWAB. But can you walk us through the development of one of the exotics that you guys worked on?
Sure. So to answer the first question, like which ones did we pick to work on, and then like what did we end up doing to those? It's not exactly what you asked.
That's good.
Sounds
it's
good.
Probably
Though.
better than how I asked.
Basically, we got this window of time to update exotics, right? And in the first TWAB where we even talked about it, TWAB, whatever. It was a pass that I assumed we would always have an opportunity to do because we did it with Destiny 1. Released the exotics. Some people really liked, like some went over really well, and some were like total misses in Destiny 1. And then like one of the first patches we did to the game was a big exotic weapons update. I always assumed we would have that same opportunity with Destiny 2. So when it came around, it's like, okay, we've got a window of time. What do we want to focus on? And so I wanted to focus on the guns that had the least adoption, the least amount of playtime according to data, and then the ones that were probably the most like complained about or like just like misses for people, right? Like they're just like, I'll never use this, right? Like I get it, I get the idea, and I'll just never
like the Darcy.
There's a whole bunch of those guns. There's a whole bunch of those guns that had that sort of like that feeling about it. So I wanted to make sure we hit all those. So that's why we didn't do Colony. Like I think Colony was like fine. We didn't touch Mida because Mida was really popular.
Colonies need some buffs. You know, it's a little,
We
it's
need
a little hard to
more
use. It's a really high skill ceiling. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
So maybe take another look at that.
I want to make a joke here, but I know it will be quoted, and then
Don't do that.
fires will light. It was a joke. I'm not gonna do
Read it in front of the superintendent.
Hold on, let me log into Twitter before you say it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that was it, right? So it's like it's sort of like a time equation, and then it was like, okay, well, what do we do for each one of these? Like, I have a big list of guns that we have some time to adjust. Like, how do we make these better? What do we do for each one of these? Like, the goals were like, don't drastically reimagine them. Like, lean into how they play already. Like, there's a handful of players out there who did like a gun. I didn't want to take that away from them. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want to change that.
Yep.
Just make it better at what it does. And make it more
Risk Runner would be an example of that, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
Then,
that was it. And it was just like
John laughing at times, and then Josh, what do you think about this? And me laughing at times. And then,
brought in a whole bunch of people. Like Skyburner was one for a long time. I was like, I don't know how to make this more interesting, right? Like the gun is pretty good. Like it's got this like dual utility and it's strong. Like I was using it a lot in my home account, and I couldn't really find a lot of feedback on that gun in particular, right? Like it's just like very neutral. So it's like I think the utility is fine. We just need to find some sort of spectacle, right, to make it like
stand out,
do something. And Grant Mackay actually was the one who helped me with that. He's like, dude, you should just have these things like make them explode and lob them like a grenade launcher. And I was like, we could do that. Okay. I tried it, and then like the first pass, I tried it and I set it up and I started shooting that full auto like lobbed grenade launchers. I was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Like, this is gonna be great.
So if an exotic didn't have that, this is gonna be fucking awesome. Response. Did you just keep going at it, or like, because it seems like most of the exotics that you guys tuned have like some wow, like spectacle or wow factor to them.
Yeah, kind of.
Most of them.
Most of them.
Risk Runner, we just turned up, right? Like it just
you dialed it up.
More potent.
Yeah, and Mida's never really had a wow factor to it. It's just like a really good gun. That's sort of its identity, right?
It's true.
Just really good, right?
Yeah.
That's why we touch like we clearly don't need to make Mida better. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
But no, to answer that directly, I do think a key element of an exotic weapon is spectacle. Absolutely.
So the exotics, like the newly refined exotics, seem to be performing like really well in the Crucible, right? It was like the Vigilance Wing and the Graviton Lance. Are you guys like testing this out with like the faster time to kills? Can we expect this to like legendaries to also get a faster time to kill, or is this just going to be like just exotics they're going to be exotic, right? They're sticking outs.
the Claymore has a faster time to kill too.
Yep.
That's a legendary.
Yep.
So and then yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a hard. We talked about this a lot at the summit, so I'll do my best to talk about that in a way that I can. There are things on the horizon. We've talked about, we're looking at the weapon plan and how that works. Watts and Pope have both seen that in action and understand what that's going to look like in the end. And we talked about a lot about time to kill, obviously, during the summit. So it's clearly a hot topic. And one of the things I said was like, hey, though it's all kind of a blur right now because so many things are coming in and changing, and it's, you want to do science on it, right? You want to, like, preferably, if any chance you get, you want to change a thing and then see how it reacts, and then change another thing and see how it reacts. Because I told them, and I think that everybody in that room agreed with me, I was like, what we can't do is, like, lower time to kill and then ever raise it back up, right? Like, that's just, like, I would probably get murdered on my way home one night if we tried to do that. And so I wanted to be sure before we just lowered time to kill that we knew what we were getting ourselves into. And the two big things on the horizon were both the exotic weapons update and then the weapons plan that is going to be coming in. And so as we're beginning to look at the weapons plan and tune for that and stuff, I think time to kill is I can tell you time to kill 100% is on the table as a knob that we have to use. And we are not at all against using that knob. Like, I'm fine with making the game faster. But I do want to understand what the output, what the final game looks like before we just blindly do it. And so I think a lot of those changes will come in over time. Like, you saw the exotics get faster when the weapons plan comes out. I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if things get a little bit faster from that point. And then maybe down the road after that, things get more faster if we feel like we still need it. So it's a hard answer because it sounds like I'm trying to dodge the question, and I hope that people are getting that I'm not. It literally is just like we're looking into a crystal ball, and we're trying to do it as scientifically as possible to know where we're going to end up when it's.
It seems like it's a good test, right? It's because you got a few outliers, right? And then you can watch the data and see what happens, and you can watch Reddit or Bungie forums and see what people think about it too.
Yep, and I will say one of the cool things about how it is right now, and I would honestly love people's opinion on that, is for the first time ever in the history of Destiny, exotics have this space to occupy that they've never really had before, right? They can actually be better than everything else, right? And in the past, we've actually made that a non-goal. We've said that, in a very specific scenario, they are the best thing, but globally, they are not allowed. We didn't necessarily want them to be better than everything else. And with this update, we're kind of saying we still want them to have their spots, because I know both of us want you to choose Fighting Lion one day and whatever Risk Runner the next, or Tractor Cannon for this thing, right? We want you to want uses for all of them, but we're also okay that they're just better, right? They're just really good. And so this update, we leaned into that real hard and just said, like, let's go for it. Like, Vigilance Wing is out there doing its thing. Let's bring everything else up and just see how it feels if you have a handful of weapons running.
And a skilled player using Graviton Lance will outshoot a Vigilance Wing. And it's it's just this great environment where I feel like you are now choosing the type of gameplay that you're gonna jump into Crucible or PvE and do.
Yeah,
you're actually like looking at the map and looking at your class and being like, okay, what do I want to use? It's Midtown.
Right.
Well, let me use Graviton because it's got like that really nice range on it. It's having decisions about stuff instead of, I'll throw on Accuracy because it murders everything, and I'll throw on Vigilance.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right. And so I'm honestly curious about your guys' opinion. Like, and I know it's only been a couple of days, and maybe we talk about this again in a couple of weeks. But like, for real, like, as you're playing at home with exotics where they sit right now, I want to know. Like, do you want us to still bring TPK up for everything?
We could bring legendaries up, but that would.
It's gonna start to stomp.
Like how special Crimson feels right now is gonna kind of go away. Right now.
Well, one of the things that I think that I've heard reflected in the community and about not just the weapons themselves having a shorter time to kill, but the how class abilities and armor and exotics fit into that overall time to kill. The conversation of skill gap and having skilled players being able to have in-air accuracy with hand cannons, would
He beat you to it. What?
Let's talk about that. How dare you? I've been getting tweets all day about that.
I'm gonna go with her. She's gonna talk about it. Actually, she's been okay. Go for it,
We're gonna
Watts.
talk about inaccuracy.
Well, just I mean, echo what people are talking about. I mean, there's a hand cannon. Legendary hand cannons would have a great purpose in PvP with in-air accuracy. I mean,
yeah, that's why I pretty much, if I'm going to use a hand cannon, I'm mostly using the 180 archetype. It's because I feel like if I jump, I'm not at a disadvantage for trying to use that height. Whereas with every other gun, it's like, crap, I shouldn't have jumped. Why am I jumping? So
Yep.
and
it's also a counter to colony because you have to jump.
Yeah.
And you can actually like jump and shoot them. Whereas if you're using something that in accuracy is very low, you're like, well, Spire's going to climb a wall. I'm going to die. It's going to be a good time. I can't kill you. I'm in the air.
Yep. I mean that is one of the knobs that we have available to us to tune. And Watson and I talked a bunch about this at the summit. Like that's something we're super interested. We talked a lot about it at the summit.
We talked a lot.
But we that's a knob that we know that we have that we can tune for, which allows us to make interesting things. But it's also worth saying that we know that it's desired and desirable, and Watson and I talked about like, are you willing to make trade-offs to get that thing? Like, here's why we think it's interesting to not have it. Here's why you think it is interesting. I think we got to a pretty good place, and we're certainly making plans around that. So,
can you talk about why it would be?
Sorry,
sorry. Go ahead.
The whole reason we have that, because I think that's a question that a lot of players have, and I think we talked to some of you guys about this in person. But the whole reason we have in-air accuracy came from early, like what Josh was talking about earlier, like the early play tests of Destiny 1, where we just had like, okay, PvP map, we have these brand new abilities and a handful of weapons, and we're all just playing against each other. Basically, the dominant strategy for PvP very rapidly became pick a Warlock or pick a Titan, float in the air, and shoot at people who can't look up at you.
Yep.
That was the game. Like, that was Destiny PvP.
Which is
a lot of that with the machine guns right now, right?
Yeah, it was so effective that like it was like, oh god, what can we do about this? Like, if we don't do something about this, this is going to be our PvP. It's going to be floating in the air, shooting down at people.
And that's I've talked about that before. I think it was on Twitter that I get quoted for it a lot. And I mean, you guys know, like if you say something on Twitter, it doesn't always come off what you're trying to say. And so it got turned into like, they took out the skill gap on purpose, and it's not a skill gap thing. And it's just like, no, that didn't take skill either. That's literally what everybody did. You tried to get above one another and shoot down into each other's brain, right? And so it was just a matter of trying to find ways to make that still. I think the sweet spot for us is that it is skill gap, that we want it to be a skill gap choice, and I don't think we're there at the moment. I think we're probably pushing too hard on it. And so people like Watts are deciding like, I made a bad move here, as opposed to like, I made a skilled jump and like chose wisely. Right. But we want to use it for, that is not an instant win, but if you know what you're doing and you know how to do it, like you can definitely make plays that way, right? Like we want the skill to actually be about knowing when and what to jump with, and when to stay on the ground and when to slide, right? Like all those things, we want those, all the scenarios, we want, the image of the math, right? Like I want you running those equations as you're, shout out the math. I want those, you running those equations as you're trying to decide, like, I'm going to this encounter, this is what I'm going to do. Sure. Oh, they threw a grenade, this is how I'm going to react. Oh, they did this, right? You're like playing chess, and I want you multiple moves ahead.
Desirable perks for weapons, Josh. Like, I mean, Icarus Icarus in D1 kind of went to that place where I thought that we would go with D2, with also armor pieces that allowed like the, what is it, Bellicose, the Titan helmet that allowed you to float in air and increased accuracy. So exotic pieces are ways that define your playstyle. If Watts wants to bounce around and shoot people, Bones of AO with increased in-air accuracy, and a gun that allows her to get increased
the maximum benefit for that,
right? And so she's now developed a style.
She's built her play style. Yep,
right. And you can see her by the armor that she's wearing, that's what she's going to be doing.
Yep.
To benefit, to maximize her play style.
It is interesting thinking about that.
That's why I really liked the conversation of if I want in-air accuracy, then maybe we lower reload speed, or maybe we do something else. So it's an actual decision that you're making. I like to play the game like this, so I'm trading to have this thing, because that's why I like to play. So that's why I really like.
Did you guys enjoy Icarus in D1, like how it was performing when it was introduced?
Yeah. I made it.
Yeah, because I feel like that's the trade-off. Is like, okay, you're going to give up something like, say, Outlaw on your hand cannon,
like a perk slot or something.
Yep, exactly.
You're going to give up Outlaw for Icarus, so you can have those floaty in-air accuracies. I also
actually I really like Icarus because, like we were just saying, Icarus is specific to a play style, right? Like you can watch certain players who like to be in the air and like to be jumping and like really, really agile, and it's like, I always liked it because it was a perk for those type of players, where other players who have other play styles would probably like trash the gun that rolled out or whatever. And it's like super value to some people. And like the conversation that happens between those two players, I think is like, those are conversations that we want to have happening in the community. That's yes, I've always liked Icarus.
That's awesome.
And
coming back to your point about like, the things becoming just what you do, like if in-air accuracy was perfect across the board, then that whole Warlock floating constantly type of thing. I think back in Reach, and like jetpacking was just so dominant because it allows you to get to the high ground immediately. So like map design kind of got nullified a lot of times because of that, because you just, I'm going to float up to the top now, and if you didn't pick jetpack, then you're at a disadvantage for that. And it's interesting. That's kind of a similar thing that happened, and you guys circumvented that with the in-air accuracy.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's go ahead.
Another thing too is that this is a thing that a lot of people don't think about, is that your screens are wide, they're not tall, right? So like vertical shooting in a shooter is surprisingly difficult. Like if you it's easier to see things in your peripheral horizontally than it is to see things that are above or below you.
Right.
And we have, at least, I mean, if you choose it on PC, but on console, we have the lower reticle, so you can at least see more above you than you can below you, which helps for that. But there's only so much we can do, especially in the 16:9 world that we live in, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I told them at the summit, there's actually also, you're at a physical disadvantage. Like your thumb just isn't, like the way you're on the controller, it's just not built to make that action. So it is an this is what I was trying to say in the tweet. Like, it is actually physically uncomfortable for everybody to try and track somebody who is above them. And we just didn't want that to be the game. I absolutely want it to be part of the game. I want, if that's Watt's skill and that's the way that she goes and she becomes one of the top players in the world because she can do that thing, but then preferably some other player has a different skill and he lines up with her and like they go toe to toe and they don't, she's in the air, but he's like, whatever, right? Like that's cool. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want to see.
That's cool.
Actually, I'd have a question about, so towards the end of D1, there was some more in-air accuracy added to kind of all the weapons. Hand cannons was still the best at being accurate in the air, but kind of all of them had a touch. How did you feel about how the game was playing at the end of D1 with that?
I laugh because towards the end of D1, I was so immersed in building D2 that like it was hard to even like come up and like look up over the top of your monitor. You're just like, oh my god. So also I don't have a good answer for that because I was very immersed in building D2.
I mean, it's playing very fast, I will say, but I'm not. That's neither a good or a bad thing. It just is what it is. It got really like the way that they play it just was very fast. And you can go back, like watch the thing. There was a video posted to your Twitter where you went, I think it was you. Somebody said like this, like over the last week, they're like, oh my God, I forgot how fast it was, right? And they were like watching a video of it happening. And so like, going back and looking at it, you can just see the speed and whatever. We're trying to get back to a lot of that now, but I don't. We're broken because when you're working on a game and we hit a point where it's hard to go home and play the thing that is out when you're working on the new thing.
It's hard playing 4v4 after Iron Banner.
Confirm the thing. The next thing is.
That was not the same thing. But it's hard to separate those two things because you're playing the same game. You're right. Like in both cases you're playing Destiny, but like this one plays significantly different than this one, and you're like, it's just hard to process everything that's happening.
It's like old Graviton Lance and new Graviton Lance.
How do you bring out the old one, right?
Right. And like, can you imagine like knowing all those weapons are coming and then going to play the old version? I just couldn't do it. I couldn't play for a long.
It's awful. Yeah.
I want all these things to be
right?
The proud little bunnies I know they can be, right? Like,
Yeah,
Right. I mean, yeah, and Pokemon's got a taste of that, right? Coming to the summit and getting to play
Yeah.
stuff. Like they know things that are coming, and like now you're living with what we live with.
Yeah.
Where, like
It's
I
a
just
tough
want
place
to play
to be.
this thing.
It
Right?
is.
I also wanted to say on those exotics, like this is the first time in a long time that I've conflicted with which exotic that I choose now when I'm logging in. Like in every session, I want to use a different exotic, and I'm really happy about that because for a while I was like, well, it's going to be Acreus or Coil. That's
Vigilance
it.
Swing?
Yeah, I actually not even really Vigilant Swing. Like I love, like for me, proccing Kill Clip on Old Fashioned is what I go for every single time I play
That is
PvP
beautiful.
because it makes me think of the 3-tap. If I can get a 3-tap, like that's like glory right there. So that's always what I would do. But now I'm thinking like all of these exotics are an option to me now. It makes me extremely excited to want to like think about different uses now. So I'm happy about that.
Us too.
yeah.
So is there any is there any talk about what exotics? Can you talk about any exotics that you're currently you're working on right now that you're looking at adjusting for D2? Or
You mean like returning D1 exotics?
or anything, any of the exotics maybe, or
You got any hot news off the press?
any hot off the press news about exotics that you got working on?
I mean, yeah.
All
We
right,
got-
cool,
We got some cool shit in the works, but
nice.
Yeah.
I can't really talk about it.
Will there
All
be
right.
more exotics? Yes,
Will they
Are
be
there
cool?
more
Yes.
exotics in Destiny 2?
there will be more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we got an exclusive.
I got a question. In the development process, do you guys ever just like have like a fun day or like a cheat day where you take something like the Graviton Lance and just turn it up to insane values where it's like, it's nuking everything.
Kind
One
of.
shot headshots.
Just
I mean,
like,
that's the best way to get somebody to play a thing that you want them to.
Yep.
Because you can't. The hard thing, you can see this in the wild too. Everything has a stigma that sticks around, right? So if something has been low on the totem for a while, and you're like, this is clearly not working as well, I want to turn it up. You turn it up, but you still have people that come into playtest and pick their favorite stuff, and guaranteed the thing that was not very good is not getting picked. And so what you do in the case of something like, I don't know, Armorlock, you turn it up to like 11 and then you play with it and show them what it will do.
Yeah.
And then everybody moves to that thing, and now you get real play cycles out of it. You get real testing time. And in the case of not Armorlock, you might turn it back down to acceptable levels, but and kind of go from that point, right? And so you like get them to play it and then put it in a real spot. And yes, the day you get them to play it, you turn it up to 11 and you murder everyone for at least one round.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what are you using like this? Is that broken? Nope, feels fine.
Guys, you remember like back on House of Wolves, the very first playtest where I hooked up Queensbreaker bow? So there's a fusion rifle. It's just a normal looking fusion rifle that had the Queensbreaker bow sniper projectile. And the only people in the lab who knew was me and Josh. And we just destroyed everybody. Nobody knew what to do. And they're like, how am I getting killed by a fusion rifle from that far away?
Across the map.
What the hell is happening? It was, it
That's
was
amazing.
Well, let me ask you this: is there anything in Warmind that maybe players haven't discovered yet? Any sleepers kind of sitting out there that maybe I'm not saying anything secret that we haven't found yet, but anything
That's exactly what you said. Like, gotta get their secrets that no one knows about yet.
But
what I
I'm
mean
not
is
talking
like
about
stuff that
secrets.
is available in the loot pool, but maybe players don't know how powerful it is, even though it might be in their inventory.
Oh, that's a good question. That's good. Any guns we should be using
Yeah.
that we're not really hot onto yet.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Maybe.
More importantly,
What's
why
the
was there-
meta? Tell us the meta.
There's
I
one.
wanna-
Yeah.
that's our job.
Yeah.
Well,
I have an answer, but I don't think it's my place to say. I think you guys should
All right.
tell us what you
oh,
find.
that's a good answer.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about has there been any talk, you guys, I before this question about exotic armor? We know.
Mhm.
Yeah. Is there anything that you guys can say about like that's exotic armor is nothing. You can't actually talk about that, can you? That was a silly question.
Well,
there
would you
anything?
be able to talk about the goals you have for exotic armor? Would that pass?
Thank you.
Like maybe some
For updating armor, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
and actually,
goals,
hold on one second.
Goals for
Just maybe like to add on to that question. Yeah, armor in general. Like, do you guys work with the armor sets as well, right? Like armor perks.
Yep.
Everything from D1 armor perks and all that.
Yep.
If maybe you could like talk about not only the goals, but also if there's a big difference between D1 armor sets and like builds and D2 armor sets. And it's a big divide for how people feel about that. I personally miss D1 armor sets and having things that mattered in raids and so on and so forth. And like, you guys moving there?
So yeah, we can talk about that. Yes.
All right.
So let's see. What's the best way to start? There are a couple types of people who look at armor in different ways. And there are some people who don't care what they look like and just want gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just want to be like,
The
I just want to be a tank, or I just want to be super agile.
Yep.
And there are people who don't really care about the gameplay, and for them, armor is how I express myself in the world visually, right? Like, this is how I customize the look of my character. This is like I'm a bright pink rainbow, just like beaming out into the heavens, or like I'm black and gray shaders, like I'm mysterious evil MFer, right? Like there are many types of people who and like armor is a very unique like set of gear in Destiny where it occupies a lot of space, right? It's like in Destiny 1 it was all sorts of perks that affected like how well you did with your guns. It was how well you were doing in certain activities. It was how much ammo you had, like grenade throws, like ability recharges. There's so much stuff went on the armor and perks, and I think there's a lot of people who felt like I don't feel like I can look the way I want to look because there's this gameplay element to this armor, and I feel like I have to run it because that's what I need for my build, right? And I have this remorse because like I want to look like the dark motherfucker, but I can't. I have to wear this rainbow chest because it's got the perk I want, right? And so I think what we were trying to do, and like I'm not the person who did the armor for D2, so I'm trying to do it right.
Yeah.
Can you help me out here?
I mean, what was trying to? I'm also not that person, but what we were trying to do was we really went more towards with how you looked, right? Like if we like weapons were how you played, then maybe armor should be how you looked, and we knew that a lot of people care deeply about that. Even because there's like John was saying, there's a couple types. There's the person who only optimizes. There's the person like Claude who would like look like an astronaut Titan regardless of what his clothes make him do. He's gonna look like an astronaut because it's hilarious. And then there's most people fall in between, right? Who like want to look a certain way, but are compelled by the stats to go a different way, to wear the hot pink pants because they like give you these perks or whatever. And so we thought, again, going back to the original statement made a while ago, that was like all about, we were proud of Destiny 1, but in some ways we felt like it was very rough around the edges, right? And we wanted Destiny 2 to tighten that down, to be cleaner, to be a better product, to be a little less embarrassing in some cases, a little more polished, a little more well designed. And the truth is, like, I think we've talked about, we've lost some of the personality that made Destiny Destiny, right? In like trying to smooth it all out and make it clean and beautiful and slick. And it's like, but I want the ugly duckling who's awesome, right? Like I don't want this clean.
That's who we fell in love with.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like but it's you can totally see that, I think, when you're outside of the building, much easier. Like you can, like, John and I both love Resident Evil 4, and I was very unhappy with Resident Evil 5 because I feel like they tried to do the same things. They saw Resident Evil 4 and like, we could do it so much better, and now we know what people like, and they built the thing, and it was like, that actually you lost of what I like, right? And so I think, but it's hard to see when you're in the building working on that thing, because you're like, of course people like this better. better. It's cleaner. It's like I could be proud of this thing. It's not quite as embarrassing. It's not, it's not shabby. It's not an ugly duckling, right? But then you lose that personality, and you don't realize that it's happening until it's happened. And so that comes all the way around to say, like, we tried to take armor and make it more about the fashion game than the stats game, which lost a lot of the interesting bits from the armor, but did make it much easier to look the way you want to look. And so
It did, yeah.
We're going back to we're definitely in talks about what we're going to do with armor. We've been looking at some stuff to try and do a better job there.
It's literally what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's a new version of.
I wasn't going to say that, but I'll back it up. It is true.
I mean, it's a thing that was talked about at the summit, and it's a thing that we had time to work on. And it's like I'm working on a new version of armor at the moment, along with a couple other people.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could try and summarize the design goal for armor for Destiny 2 launch, it was very simple but meaningful gameplay changes to the armor itself that was intended to be affordant with how the armor looks.
Specifically, like you could look at armor and say, "Oh, this is a heavy set or a light set." Like we wanted that to be human readable.
We wanted you to be able to look at like a warlock who's like padded up with like thicker armor and be like, he's wearing a heavy set. That guy's more of a tanky warlock than one who's wearing more like cloth robes. And like that's more of a mobile set, right? So we wanted some sort of affordance with like how someone looked, and we were hoping that would be enough gameplay mixed with like, I just want to look how I want to look. Like I just want to express myself aesthetically in this world to all my friends and peers. And then we sort of like yes, we pulled a lot of the gameplay hooks off of the legendary armor, and the intent was let's overload the exotics with this stuff. So like if I was always in Destiny 1, if I was always searching for armor that just made me better with hand cannons, then you go to Destiny 2 and be like, okay, I can look the way I want, but if I'm a hunter, I'm running Lucky Pants. It just makes me better with hand cannons, right? Like that was the overarching design intent. Whether or not we slam dunked it, it's not up to me, but that's what we were trying to do. Yeah,
that's interesting. Very interesting. I completely understand the perspective and the goals, and seeing the result with Destiny 2, but it definitely took away from the chase for me, because the raid armor was irrelevant for me, because I was like, it's not going to give me any kind of perks that were going to change my experience in the raid. And that was some of the stuff that like I absolutely wanted to grind for in all the raids in D1, was because I wanted to get the Wrath gloves so I could just have an insane amount of heavy ammo drop for me and be able to utilize that and be like, oh, now I'm launching rockets constantly because I've got those gloves. And it actually changed that sandbox in the way I'm playing that raid dramatically for me. And then other people would see that and be like, oh my God, I need to have those gloves. Suddenly it's in my brain that I have to go and raid and get those gloves until they drop. And that was that just it went away for me in Leviathan, because like Leviathan is a fantastic raid, but when it comes down to the rewards, a lot like that felt like 50% of the rewards were gone right there, because there was not interesting raid perks that would synergize with builds that I would make in those raids.
When we first heard about mods, it seemed like that would be a way to kind of
mods
boost that up, but then the mods.
Oh, mods.
Why do you say it that way?
You know why we say it. The mods we ship with D2 are awful. That whole system is bad, and I can say that because I worked on it, and it is too. I'm not disparaging anybody else in the building. It's too complicated. Like it's just bad.
He's saying a bunch of stuff that I said to him while we were making it.
Right.
It's not gonna,
to be fair, it was very late. And it could be that way, sure, but I got to do this. And those are still, we're going back to the drawing board on that stuff too. And I agree, mods could totally be more like that thing, and would make total sense for that. The truth is, like, the way it came together did not give us the opportunity to deliver something like that at that time. And so now we have, we don't have more time, but we have the ability to look back on where we came from and know what we should change, and then move in a better direction. Whereas, the first time out of the gate, we didn't have that. It was just flying blind. And so we're not in that position anymore. I think we can do some really cool stuff in that.
Do you think that's like one of the dominant reasons for the mod choice was just because you didn't have the player data essentially to know what needed to go in with it, or is it just not enough time to flesh it out?
Yeah, it's a bunch of stuff. I mean, it was.
I would say it's none of those things. Like the real answer, in my opinion, is not worth talking about here. I don't think it's just.
Yeah, it's
making games is hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Fair enough. Yeah.
No, so it's going to be interesting to see what you guys come up with exotic armor, and if it's anything like the love and attention that you've putting into the exotic weapon pass. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with, and I really appreciate the way that you're working on mods and making that, like, everything. The things you're saying here make me hopeful for September. And
Absolutely,
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, especially with how much I'm enjoying the Warmind right now, is the improvements to the game in the Warmind are. It's really, it feels like a different game almost in a lot of situations, and I just can't wait to see what comes out in September.
Absolutely.
I mean,
it's
not perfect yet, but I feel like we're really going in the right direction.
So it's bringing back those feelings, right? It's not perfect, but you get that little bit of, this feels a little bit like D1 when I was getting up and trying to grind out all the stuff. So I'm super excited.
I just got to say one more thing about armor also, just because we're talking about it. And, I just I would love for there to be a possibility that, you guys are the professionals and you know what makes sense and so on and so forth. But if there was a future where I went to Nessus and I equipped a full set of Nessus armor and I got unique perks for having a full set on, like set bonuses and all that maybe even connected with weapons that I was using with specific manufacturers and stuff like that. That stuff, as somebody who wants to make builds, is extremely exciting for me as a player. Yeah, because I'm thinking, oh my god, I just need a class item, and then I can complete the set. It's going to unlock that perk that's then going to make my hand cannon do a certain thing. In those instances, like that stuff from a build level is what makes me spend way too much time in a video game.
I agree. Deck building is the thing that we like a lot. I will say that without spoiling anything, that feedback is being accounted for right now.
There's another problem with the set bonuses, and that's when you do build sets, it feels like you run quickly out of room to keep them.
False.
That's not a sandbox.
Yeah, you guys work on that, right? The vault is in the sandbox.
You agree, right?
It's a tool that we play with.
We purposely build stuff to fill up your vault so that it's someone else's problem.
I think there's some really great opportunity, like what Tefty's talking about. There's the Tex Mechanica, the
absolutely,
the Huckleberry submachine gun. And then you've got the pants. What are the Titan pants that reload
SMGs?
SMGs?
The reload.
I love SMGs.
Peacekeepers that do that.
No, I think it might be the Peacekeepers, but that reload your submachine gun Linstow. I mean, and they're crafted by Tex Mechanica. It just seems like there's that crossover potential for like what Tefty's talking about, to really commit to a style, and
I love that stuff.
Bonuses off of that.
When it connects in the world, it's so
Speaking
good.
of the Huckleberry, I got a question. Who named the Huckleberry, and why is it in a hand cannon?
Seriously.
Oh man, this is awesome because I totally get to throw some of the people on the bus right now. So just to let you guys know, I mean, I think like we've been pretty excited about announcing this, which is that Warmind is a collaboration with Vicarious Visions. It's one of the first times that we've worked this closely with another studio on a Destiny release. And so a whole bunch of the new sandbox stuff that got introduced was a handful of like really talented and great devs over at Vicarious Visions, and
clearly haven't seen Tombstone.
Yeah, they'd never seen Tombstone.
Right.
And
so what you're saying is that we all have to send a copy of Tombstone to Vicarious
Visions, right?
DVDs, Blu-rays,
downloads. One of those geniuses over there was the one who decided to call it Huckleberry. No, but seriously, the new exotics and the reprised exotics were all passion projects for a handful of devs over at Vicarious Visions, and we were we were pretty hands off. We were pretty like we want to see what you guys do with this IP, and like you know, we synced with them regularly. Like we would do like video chats on a weekly basis, and like lots of emails and instant messages and stuff. But for the most part, it's like, all right, like we just sort of like, okay, it would start out with like, all right, here's how we think about like when you're just designing an exotic weapon from scratch, or like something like the Valkyrie from scratch. Probably show them that thing, right?
Oh yeah, I have a giant.
We have this thing right here. Yeah, we have one of
Giant
these.
Valkyrie.
Just in case,
Awesome.
because you never
great.
know what's gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Where do I
so like
purchase one of those?
I have no idea.
Get on the Bungie store yet?
Shockingly heavy.
So yeah, like when you're building one of these things, like a Destiny thing from scratch, like here's are the goals we keep in mind. This is the player experience that we're trying to get out of this. Like, go. Right, and then it'd be like a series of iterations of like, okay, here's what we're thinking, and then like we give them a bunch of like really salty feedback, and like we're total jerks, and we just tell them all their ideas are awful, and then
which is what we do to each other too, to be clear. But they didn't know us, right? So that makes it much worse.
Yeah. So yeah, the Huckleberry, the Scout Rifle, the Sword, Suros Regime coming back, and Sleeper seemingly coming back. Those were all passion projects from Vicarious Visions, and we tried to give them as much advice as possible, and then stay out of the way as far as possible, and just sort of let them build an experience that they believed in. And part of that is like, okay, if this falls flat, it's also your guys' job to update it, right? Like listen to what the community says, like see what you can do about it to address community feedback if this isn't an exciting experience for players. So yeah, the Huckleberry was all Vicarious Visions. Sort of like, and I actually like to speak directly to that. I think we did give that feedback. We were like, okay, you're calling it the Huckleberry. Have you guys seen Tombstone? There's no SMGs in Tombstone. Okay, all right. Okay, all right.
That word has meaning, damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Briar, you think we want to jump into some Twitter questions?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We got a lot of Twitter questions. It really
I can
overwhelmingly
imagine.
We did
positive,
get a lot of Twitter questions.
positive stuff. And some people,
Oh yeah, you guys saw, right? You guys saw.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
John actually answered
Luke
some of
was
them.
being bad and answering questions.
I mean, we don't have enough
I saw
content to talk
Pope
about.
yelled at him. I know.
Yes, I did. Thank
I know.
you.
I saw.
can we take a minute to talk about our sponsor, Pope?
Yeah, I don't know. We have a sponsor, but I mean, I'd have to turn on my.
Toads.
Wait, I'm on my computer.
Oh,
Sorry, that's the best I got. I can't. I
We wanna
can't.
thank
You caught
On Air
me. You caught me off guard.
We want to thank On Air PC for sponsoring this week's show. If you are a streamer, if you'd like to build a streaming PC, or if you'd like to play video games like Destiny 2 on PC with unlimited frames,
Unlimited.
all the frames.
On Air
Now
PC
unlimited,
can give
for
you
real.
a hand with that.
They're great guys. When I had wanted to get a PC for myself, you got a phone number, you give them a call. There's a guy on the phone that answers, talks you through it. You don't have to be an expert about whatever you want. They'll help you put it together, build it, and ship it. Came timely, and it's a freaking great machine. I really appreciate it.
That's right. They'll build a computer to fit your needs and your budget. You can give them a call at 330-850-1525. Thank you again to On Air PC.
Would it be weird if I called them literally right now?
I don't think it'd be weird. I think it'd be hilarious.
Do it.
Make sure you put it on speaker, though.
All right.
We do have Twitter questions. Obviously, you know, some of these are going to be a little loose around the sandbox area.
You don't have to answer. We'll talk. And if you guys want contribute, they're not directed at you.
Well, they are for the most part.
Well, I mean, I think that's true.
Paul D'Angelo starts off with, how do devs determine if an event or activity is too difficult for the general public? What are the determining factors?
Yeah, I read that one earlier, and I was like, God, I hope it's that one.
I mean, one too. You said too tough for like that's.
Yeah, like how do we determine difficulty? Like if it's like sweet spot, too hard, too easy.
I mean, you have a bunch of people play it. That's
Yeah.
the one good metric we have is each other, and so you kind of learn people. We don't do this very often because we don't have to tune difficulty for activities specifically, but we do. It is something we consider for like how easy to use different things are that we built. So it's kind of the same, right? Like you learn people's traits, what they're good at, what they're not good at. So basically you learn who's good and bad, and then you let them all play and kind of see where an activity sort of starts to line up. I think we have our biggest problem is being able to tune stuff that is hard enough to be hard, right? Like John was saying earlier about escalation protocol, right? It's just like we can make stuff hard, and for the average player, it might be real hard. But like trying to land the value somewhere between what would be an average player and a super capable player is super difficult. But it's really just like trying to use each other, and usability and stuff like that. Like we'll bring people in to playtest stuff, and they'll give scores back about, did you think this activity was too difficult or too easy? Right, is like a 1 through 5 scale or whatever, and have people vote. But you kind of just have to develop a gut for a lot of that stuff, and then just start to trust that you understand it.
And that's also, I mean, we have opinions. We go to a lot of playtests and we give advice, but that's not our area, right? Like that's more of a handshake between like a mission designer or a strike designer, and then the combatant designers who are like helping build the boss and the combatants for that space. And so like we can play it and be like, oh, we had feedback on this encounter, like, you know, way too many yellow bars here, or like this boss just has too much health and you're spawning guys behind me and they're like, it's like too difficult, or it's like not hard enough. Or
Did they ever come back to you and say, yo, we designed this really cool boss and players just 3-shot him with this Darcy?
Yep, all the time. All the time. So like we just had this conversation. Just had a conversation like that before coming
like
in
20 minutes before we called you guys. Yeah.
And actually like to be totally candid, to be totally honest with you guys, because it's all I know how to do, is I think a lot of the feedback about weapons in Destiny 2 came from conversations like that internally with the studio. Like a big thing that we value at Bungie is being on the same page creatively with all your peers, right? And sometimes if like you put yourself in the shoes of a strike designer who's trying to build like a really interesting encounter or boss fight that's like multiple layers of difficulty, and then the players can just like run in there and like suppress the boss and then pull out Black Spindle and just like annihilate it in 30 seconds. And he's like,
what did
all
you
this
do?
work I put into like like I can't even,
what did you do?
I can't even like make a player experience without the players coming in and just like flattening it, right? And so like like all through Destiny 1 into Destiny 2, we were having conversations with our peers, with our fellow designers who are all they want to do is surprise and delight players, and they were having a hard time doing it with the amount of power that any player could bring to bear to an encounter. So
did those guys put Juggler in the game?
So Juggler,
but that's I mean, I think that's definitely oversimplifying the feedback and the feelings about the weapons experience, and I definitely don't want to come off as saying like it's their fault or anything like that, because at the end of the day, it was definitely like mostly me and a handful of other people who sort of like fine-tuned the weapons for D2 launch.
Interesting.
But as you can see, with Warmind, we're pushing out. We're pushing harder. We're saying, sorry, strike designer, they're gonna annihilate your shit.
And those we're starting to have those conversations. People are coming up to us and have you seen this? Like,
yeah, we kind of figured that would happen.
Yeah.
I imagine that was a conversation with Icebreaker.
There were many
conversations.
The Icebreaker.
Yeah, we learned a lot of lessons.
Holy crap! Yeah.
See, that's part of the things though. Like that's that ugly duckling thing though that we were talking about how like Destiny 1 had those elements. They stood out to you because you felt that power right there. Like you went into that strike. Yes. I fought Valstark and hid in a corner because I was underpowered and had crappy weapons and would throw my grenade every time my cooldown was done because I had exhausted all my ammo because I felt underpowered. And then fast forward a month or two later, I come in and just destroy Valis because I've got the Trinity. I've got, Fatebringer, Black Hammer, and Gallahorn. And those were exciting moments for me to experience that. And I completely understand from like a designer perspective of having your encounter flattened because of power, but that's also like the fantasy that you guys are building.
Yeah. No, you're right. And there's two there's two things that you said there that I hope that you can see it from the designer perspective. It's hard to see both of those things, but in the end, I believe you're totally right. But hiding in the corner, getting your ass handed to you for 2 hours, also considered a bad experience,
Totally.
right? And like
That's
wrecking
every day for me.
I purposely went into those nightfalls though, knowing that I was going to have to hide in the corner if I did want to complete it.
Yeah, I think we all did, right? But that's the sort of thing you look at and say, could we be doing this better?
Yeah.
Do we want to make people feel this way? And in the long run, that's how things like that get polished up. And then look, we shipped a diamond, and it's like, yeah, but it has none of the personality, right? And it's like that's how you get to those spots without realizing that you're kind of getting to the spots. You were trying to do the right thing. You were trying to make the game better, right? In every possible way, but you lose out on those sorts of things that are a big deal, but they're hard to see as anything but faults, especially when you're internally, you build a game and, it's hard to watch people kind of slam their face against the wall over and over again.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
I am the Kaiser.
We're going back, so it's fine.
I am the Kaiser asked, with the new exotic buffs out, are there any buffs for these weapons that could have been but didn't happen? Maybe some you personally wanted to see.
Oh man, what a great question. Let me think for a bit.
Do you have thinking music?
All I got is the Jeopardy.
My battery's
song.
right now. Yeah. So I mean,
I know one thing, but I think we might still want to do it, and I want people to be surprised.
yes, that thing. Yeah. Well, we're gonna see if we can get that to work behind the scenes.
You guys were gonna try to nerf fusion rifles again, but just couldn't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One less bolt.
I think I would have loved to do something more with Jade Rabbit. Jade Rabbit's a really tough one. Jade Rabbit's perk was, when we were building Destiny 1, the tech we had at the time, Jade Rabbit's perk was complicated enough that it's actually not designer facing, it's all hard coded. So, and it's stayed that way ever since. So as a designer, I actually can't update it. I need to ask an adult. I need to ask a programmer to be like, hey, can you go to the code and like do some tweaks for me here? And that just wasn't a thing that we had time to do. So I would have loved to do something a little bit more interesting with Jade Rabbit. But like at the same time, I think that the gameplay loop of Jade Rabbit is so subtle and unique that I wouldn't want to change it too much. I think I would just want to like probably
Push on it harder.
Yeah, expose the feedback to the player a little bit so you know when you're proccing the perk and then when it kicks in. And then, yeah, just do something a little bit more celebratory when you actually get that like bonus headshot.
Like shooting rabbits.
A buddy rabbit runs across the screen.
Yeah,
We should.
Yeah, okay. You have a story.
We need to talk.
This is perfect.
So, you guys know Colony, right?
Yeah.
You've heard of that?
Oh,
Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Spiders?
Yeah. So
They didn't start out as spiders.
yeah. So
Really?
The colony tech that uses when the projectile hits the ground and starts crawling, it uses a tech we internally call ground follow. And it was really primitive when I first got my hands on it for Curse of Osiris, when I was like, I want to make this grenade launcher that shoots little spider droids that like run around the environment and chase enemies down. It was really primitive, but the engineer I was working with at the time, he's like, okay, we can do something like that with our ground follow tech. It doesn't work very well right now, but I have some time, I can make it better. But if you want to get a prototype up and running, you can use another asset in the game that's using this tech already. And so I did. So he helped me sort of like grab this asset and put it on the colony projectile. So have you guys noticed when you're running through EDZ, occasionally there's a little rabbit on the ground and you get close to it and it runs away? So the first version of Colony shot a grenade, and as soon as it hit the ground, it became a little jackrabbit that ran at an enemy and then exploded.
I'm telling you right now.
It was both. It was a door pull at the same time. You're like, oh, it's a bunny.
Telling you right
Can you
now.
please make a 1 in
Ornament.
like 100,000 chance of making that bunny appear?
Yes.
Actually, I have a video of that working on a test map, and then now that it's out in the open, maybe I could talk to the community team about like putting it up on.
That would be phenomenal. You need
That would
that
be
needs to be an
amazing.
ornament. Make that an ornament.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah. Actually,
Ornament that makes
there's
bunnies.
There's one point on Osiris where I got up in front of the whole Curse of Osiris team and I was like, here's your new exotic weapon. And it was just like a rabbit running across the game.
That's great.
There used to be a perk in Destiny 1 that it said against minions of darkness, or specifically like it would only affect minions of the darkness. You don't see it in Destiny 2. And I was wondering, like with the colony, like there's so much hate on that gun in the Crucible, but it's so much fun to use in like against the minions of darkness. Has there been any thought about like putting like that modifier on guns in Destiny 2?
One of our core tenets is, and we talked about this a lot.
Oh wait, here's here.
Is that we want to build weapons. We want to build gear that you can take from one place to another, and they don't have to be identical, but they need to function the same. You need to like be able to learn how to use a colony in PvE and then take it to PvP, or vice versa, right? Like we want you to understand what you're gonna get when you move from one area to the other. The thing we let go of a long time ago and have been doing ever since is damage, because that doesn't matter as much because damage is relative, right? And so as long as it generally feels correct in one and the other, then you're fine. But functionality, we generally just say we don't do those things because we don't want it to feel like I made a gun that works this way in PvE and I don't understand at all what is happening when I go to PvP, that sort of thing. However, we have talked about Colony a bunch specifically, and we feel like there's a bunch of knobs that we can tune to make it better or less better. You know what I mean? And worse. But like, but we have two things going there. One is like we're trying real hard not to nerf anything until we absolutely have to, until the community feels like it's the right thing for us to do. And two, when we do it, we want to make sure we do it in the right ways, where it still feels like in the same way that John mentioned, like he wanted to be careful about when we made exotics better. Even if they were bad to begin with, let's say. He would be mad at me if he heard me use the word bad, but you know what I mean. None of them were bad. They were all beautiful. But if they weren't getting played, but one guy did play them, right? And like that person has like learned to play it a certain way and has fallen in love with that thing. We didn't want to kick the table out from underneath them. And that would be the same. That's our same goals going into buffing and nerfing, right? It's like it still needs to feel like what it is. It still needs to satisfy the fantasy of little robot droids who are running around and exploding on people. But there are I do believe there are cases that we know of that are making it more useful in ways that maybe it shouldn't be, and more people are picking it. But we also just wanted to see like, hey, sure, Colony is Colony, and people have things to say about that. But here comes the exotic weapons buff, and let's see where it actually ends up fitting in once everything is playing at different levels.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, like I don't pick Colony quite as much as I used to because I pick all these other things. And so it's just we didn't want to grind into the ground. Well, you don't want to grind into the ground ever, but we certainly didn't want to even bring it down before we knew what we like. Again, going back to the scientific method of like how we want to be building the game. Like we want to see like, okay, we know we got this change coming, guaranteed it will affect it in some way, and then let's see where we are and make an adjustment after that.
Yeah, I think most people appreciate that too who play the game. Like nobody wants things to just be like broadsided hammered down. You know, that's
right.
And then just like I said, the gun doesn't operate the same way as it does anymore. Like you want the changes to make sense, obviously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wami says, would 6-man patrols ever be a possibility?
Wami, I have no idea.
No idea.
You're the wrong team to ask for that.
Yeah.
Andrew says, how is the matchmaking determined in the competitive playlist?
Good. No idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is going to go real fast.
Yeah.
Mesa Sean says, I forgot to ask this at the summit. Would they consider adding back the Crucible kill chirp from Destiny 1?
I saw that question right. First of all, hi, Sean. Second, I, again, probably want to ask the PvP team about that. He should tweet Derek or Kevin, I would say, and ask those guys. But that's an interesting idea for sure.
What's he talking about?
Remember when you get a kill in D1, it'd go, you know, like there'd be like an audio effect.
Like bing?
An audio.
Yeah, it was like it was a subtle chirp that would happen. That I'm trying to think.
I guess I just didn't get enough kills often enough.
Hope that's not.
I didn't
you're
want
not
to say it.
making
I'm
me
glad
feel
you
very confident about.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard the death screen, like,
Right. Well, while you were hearing that, someone else was hearing a chirp. And that's the missing link there.
Got it.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, they want it right now. It plays the same sound. I think the thing that Sean is actually asking is I think he really does like that sound and wants that sound back, but he's looking for feedback on whether he got the kill or he got the assist. Right?
It's important feedback too, because
Yeah, I
it
like
could
that.
tell you if you just activated a perk.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Jeff says, "What weapons and armor are you most proud of in this update? Can you share any more big upcoming buffs to weapons or armor?"
Go with the first part of the question.
Yes.
Well, VV basically. So in this update, it's hard to say, but my favorite thing. There are favorite things.
Yeah. I'm probably most proud of Graviton Lance. I think that one was that gun was always a pet project of mine, and
It feels more like
into-
a scout rifle now.
yeah,
Yes,
it's definitely more of a hybrid now, which is not necessarily the intent. Like I always imagined it as a pulse rifle, but the sweet spot that it's in right now is almost like beyond me. I'm like, I play it and I'm like, I didn't do this. How did I do this? What the hell? Like, this is great. Like people who are good at game design do this kind of stuff.
And we struggled.
Yeah.
Originally building that gun for a long time, like John
Yeah.
was having a hard time figuring out how to make it stand out. And
Mhm.
then, in this update, it just clicked one day. It was like, oh, this is it. This is like, you did it. It's done.
Yeah.
Back away.
So yeah, I think most proud of is Graviton Lance, but my heart will always belong to Rat King.
Rat King. Can we talk about Rat King?
Sure.
Yeah. What happened?
There was a checkbox that wasn't checked
Mhm.
that allowed the
Oh,
perk.
the bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It allowed the perk to carry over to any other gun, basically. Like
So people were using it, for those people that don't know, people were using it to supercharge, right? They're
Overflow their rockets.
overflow their rockets.
Yep.
So in the raid specifically, you could hold the Rat King in your inventory on you, and then if everybody just had their rockets out, it would load it up, and everybody would get 11 rockets to max out. So it made the boss fights easier.
Yeah, I could see that.
It was really funny to watch it.
Yes.
And those are fun bugs. Like those are the things. Like somebody asked me the other day about that bug, and I specifically said, yeah, what's the worst that could happen? He said, right? Because that's those things, right, are gonna happen.
Those are the
from time to time.
things.
Yeah. But I think Deej did a really good job of answering a portion of that question to you earlier in the day, Pope. But basically, we had 3 options, right? And we chose to let's just turn off Rat King until we get a fix, and that way we don't have to worry about it for World's First. Because I think everybody wants a clean World's First. Like that's a big moment for the whole community when we should.
I think something that was interesting that came out of that conversation I had with Deej and in this issue with the Rat King is that they talked about a new ability that you have within the game after I forget what gun Prometheus Lens brought it out.
Yeah.
But now you have a new tool to kind of close off or turn off a single weapon.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that gives you the freedom as a designer to go a little crazier and try different things?
No, I think Prometheus Lens was a very fortunate situation that ended up being really fun for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, that was an oversight on my part, and it's a bug that we shipped with the game. So no, I don't feel like I have more freedom, just because I feel like that's irresponsible as a designer of this game to be like, oh yeah, I'll just make it super hot, and if it ends up ruining trials or jeopardizing World's First Raid, then we'll just turn it off. I think that's pretty arrogant position to take personally.
And the truth is, one, yes, Prometheus Lens case, that was fun and it was a good weekend. We had people in the office having to work overtime to get a fix out, right?
Yeah.
To make sure we didn't keep the game broken, because I think one weekend is hey buddy.
It's the baby.
We had a lot of people in the office working fix the thing because we didn't, like I said, 1 weekend is fun. 2 weekends would have not been as fun, right? Any longer than that, the game is super broken. So that's one of the things that I was pretty adamant. I wanted to switch that was built to do this, and I didn't even know we had it yet. That's the best part. Like I just found out. I was like, "Are you kidding me? We made the switch?" But on the flip side of that, while we can do things, that means like we can buy ourselves time to get a proper fix in, or in the case of like this, where we have an event happening that we believe is important to the community, and we want to make sure that it's clean. At the end of the day, we're still responsible to our players, right? We're still like, hey, I'm not gonna push on a thing thinking maybe it's broken, maybe it's fine, because I don't want to take Rat King away from anybody, right? Like I don't want anybody to go this week without being able to enjoy what could be their favorite gun. Like that's not something we want to do. And in fact, we feel like we need to wield that hammer with maximum responsibility, but it is a powerful tool. And it is certainly, I think, a good tool to have. Like I'm stoked that we had it for this week, and we could make that choice, and we didn't have to push the raid a week to get a fix out or whatever, right?
I think that was
thing.
I couldn't agree more that this is the better call, and I appreciate your perspective on that, John, because I've been out there like saying, okay, I want you guys to have weapon designers and to have the freedom to make creative guns, right, and try new things, and not that you're not making creative guns, but like the idea behind the exotics, and just kind of pushing the bounds of that, and if this tool is there as a stopgap, I saw it as a way of allowing you guys maybe a longer tether to try stuff out. But I appreciate that perspective. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Have you guys ever had a bug that turned into a feature, like a either like in testing or once you saw it actually in the wild, that you just decided to leave it because it was too good, or you decided to actually like expand upon the bug because like it was just fun?
Yes. I'm trying to think of specific.
Yeah.
I am confident there are specifics even in Destiny. I mean, I definitely have one from a project that I worked on when I was in school. We made a game where you were fighting off these robots and they're one-shot kills or whatever. And then there was this bug that got, I still to this day am shocked by this bug, but it would like every once in a while would spawn one of them and they would move at 4 times the speed and they would just come flying out, and so it was awesome. And we had no idea what was. So we finally figured it out, reverse engineered it, made it part of the game, and it just changed their look so that they glowed red when that happened. It was like done. Like we totally we designed that. Like no, it totally fell into our laps. But yeah, I think that stuff happens basically every project. There's something that either you choose to clean up and keep, or at least inspires you to do something else, right? Like, oh, that's cool. I didn't think about that. Like we should what if we did this instead?
Chad is talking about Titan skating.
They are.
Was that something that was intentional?
No.
Yeah, it became something of a rallying cry behind Titan, and for D2, and it seems like some of the movement modes are better suited towards that. But are we going to see Titans get any of those abilities back?
Well, I mean, they're already skating right now on PC, right? And so it's just a matter of us figuring out what we need to do there and to how to make it, like either make it part of the Titans kit or figure out how to make it usable. What we need to do there. I'm not sure, honestly. Right now, we don't have immediate plans to squash that on PC, and we don't have immediate plans to pull it back in. But it is definitely. That being said, something we have been talking about and talked about a lot at the summit, right?
Movement, like shoulder charge and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep. So it's absolutely in our heads, and now it's just a matter of, like the way we're constantly building stuff, and it's just a matter of prioritizing and making sure we have time to do things.
Yeah, Titan skating is interesting because we don't dislike it. It's fun, and it's obviously really exciting to a lot of players. But at the same time, it's like very contrary to the fantasy of the Titan. So we're not taking it away, but at the same time, it's like there could be something else that we could do instead that would be a super sweet, like feeling movement thing that is like totally like rallies with with what a Titan
what they
is,
are.
like the idea
Sure.
of being a tank, right?
Interesting. That's cool. Okay, I got a bug that I think would fall in your guys' wheelhouse. Maybe.
Okay.
Randall the Vandal. Is that
Randall
is
wasn't
that?
us.
No.
but no, that's combatants. Yeah.
Combatants. Yeah. But his health pool.
Yeah.
Oh, I
He
guess they would
was
set that.
impressive.
Randall was amazing.
Yeah.
Randall is, yeah.
Every now and then when he'd spawn and be
miss
like,
Randall.
"This is an invincible freaking Vandal."
Yep.
I loved when he came back in the raid too. Like
Yes.
That was a
that
great
was
moment.
great.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's stuff like that all over the game where we either stumble into something awesome or it just presents itself and we get a good laugh out of it and inspires something else.
Interesting.
Happens all the time.
Hey, it's DT says, we're beginning to hear concerns regarding weapon prominence. Please describe what affirmative steps your team and others will be taking to ensure the ranked playlist avoids becoming stale. What's your goal regarding timeliness? Hey, it's DT is a lawyer, if you didn't get that from the question.
He is a lawyer.
Well, I'll have my lawyer contact.
That's
his
right.
lawyer.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable present. So
Yeah. No, that's I'm glad you guys asked that question. That's I don't have a plan. That's it to me, honestly. One of the most exciting things about this release is the fact that we're releasing a bunch of new ways to be way more powerful than you could be before. And at the same time, we're releasing a ranked playlist where all of a sudden getting killed matters way more than it did before. And for a long time, I've been like wondering how this is going to play out. And I'm eager to see. It's only been a couple days. I'm eager to see what happens here, right? Like as we get more exposure in the ranked playlists and players give more feedback about how they're feeling playing ranked, when you have guns like Colony, Graviton, and Sturm and Drang that can, like, you know, arguably a lot of people say there's no skill to Colony. Skill is controlling the heavy ammo. Competitive, that's the skill. But yeah, there's no skill to Colony, and then like a handful of guns just beat the time to kill on a bunch of other guns. Like, yeah, there's no plan right now, but we're like, I'm ready to do something, right? I just want to see how the players react to it. I think there's a lot of competitive-minded players who play Destiny and they're looking for a balanced experience, and there's also a lot of players who play Destiny and they're just looking for fun and they're looking for I want to be part of a competitive experience, but for me it's about like yeah, how much power can I push out into the world, and like, Bungie, what are you going to do to give me these feelings of power, right? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the global community conversation lands around this particular issue. And
John gave a really impassioned speech at the summit, I would say, an answer to a question that was asked that I was super, I thought was a really good answer. That mentioned like, hey, the goal isn't to like nerf a thing or make a thing not good. It's to give you, to keep you from playing a thing. It is purely that we just want you to feel like everything is viable, right? And like we started talking about earlier in the chat, like Watts being able to have her play style built around this weapon and that weapon and this armor and that armor, right? And these subclasses. And then somebody else have a totally different play style built around additional things. And so we feel the game is stale when that stops happening and people start all sort of coming together on a single thing. Like that is
the meta.
That's the moment that but I mean, I think you can have a meta that is wide enough that like we will, because you're always going to have some of that, right? Like we're basically never going to nail it. And even some of the meta is pure perception, right? It doesn't really necessarily always matter what the numbers say. It is like, these are the guns that everybody is playing, so I want to get those guns, and now I'm playing that, and my friend gets like, right, and so like it's always going to converge somewhat. But I think the key for us is controlling how tightly things converge, and so being able to make people feel like they have options. And we'll constantly like update things and mix stuff up so that, you know, this thing isn't getting played, and maybe it's perception or maybe it's not as good, but it goes back to the same thing as in the playtest, right? Like, okay, well, if we turn it to 11, sure as shit, somebody's going to show up for it now, right? And then we see what that thing does and like start to start to pull it all back together again. And again, it's just for us, I think it's just keeping the widest possible convergence available to us.
That to me is one of the best things about Destiny 2 compared to Destiny 1 is that I feel like at any time I can go into any activity and use any type of weapon I want. If I want to go into the Crucible with hand cannons and SMGs, I could do that and I can be successful with it. If I want to do scout rifle and whatever combination, like I feel like I want to play with, they're all usable. And that I never felt like there was a time in Destiny 1 that was like that, right? There's always a time where if you want to win in the Crucible, you got to use this, right?
Yep.
There's definitely really good weapons in Destiny 2, but the archetypes I don't feel like there's an archetype that I just can't use, right? Like if I want to win. And I really like that about Destiny 2.
Yeah, that's
great to hear.
I like playing the Crucible so much in Destiny 2.
Yeah, that's all John and Greg, Greg Ping and John just put together an incredibly super balanced game. And in fact, I think told this to John a couple times, like I totally understand what people think about D2, why they feel the ways they do, why we should change it, right? Why we should alter the plan and go back and play with my mic. That's probably gonna be mad. But ultimately, we tried to build that, from a sandbox point of view. We tried to build you can play anything at any time and everything is super balanced. And that in a loot game is incredibly difficult to do, near impossible. And I think we landed on that closer than we ever thought that we could. And so in some ways it's hard to have to pull away from that because we felt like we really landed that. But there are people that are Pope said, who are also want to show up to Destiny and want to feel powerful and have fun. And those two things don't necessarily sit on the same layer, right? You have to tug at one to get the other one to matter. And so it's hard.
Yeah,
but
I definitely agree with the sentiment. I feel like in terms of launch on Destiny 2, you guys, for the most part, nailed that experience. But it's, again, goes back to the ugly duckling type of comparison where the reason why things stood out was some of the best memories that I had in both PvE and in PvP. And while I don't want one or two weapons to be the weapon, because I don't think that's fun either, I think when everything is completely polished, it becomes something where it's like I play it for a little bit, but then I don't have that call back for me that the hooks, the hooks in me as a gamer don't get deep because I feel like everything's on the same playing field essentially. And I know you guys, like you said, it's an impossible equation to solve that you're trying to solve all the time, but having a few things stick out and then a lot of things that are good. And then, there's got to be some crap in the barrel. So it's crap, right?
Yep. Yeah. You can't have a roller coaster without highs and lows, right? You need all the things. So, so we're definitely operating in that mentality once again, but that's where we were.
I feel like Warmind is a big step in that direction, and it feels fantastic. All these exotics that I thought were, I don't know. Now I'm like, yes, I want to break this out. Skyburners is amazing now. It's fun. There's all these weapons that I'm enjoying using suddenly again. They feel like new weapons to me.
Yeah.
They could be awesome weapons, but as long as there's awesome weapons in every archetype.
Yeah. I can see Pope's lips moving, but no sound is coming out. So
I had some really good comments.
We'll be the judge of that, Pope.
Only I can be the judge of that. I could have been great. I could have been a contender.
Mustafa Al-Rakabi says, how much time does it usually take to make a new weapon?
Oof. It depends on the weapon.
That's a good question.
Yeah, and that's what does that question mean? Are you talking a new weapon archetype?
Yeah. A long time.
When we made a grenade launcher and added that to D2, that takes a long
Say we wanted
time
to create a rocket launcher that blew out hot air and fart noises, and we wanted to call it the Briar, right?
So Tractor Canyon.
So
So
how long would it take for us to make the Briar?
An exotic weapon takes a long time to make. It's one of the more expensive game assets that we have. think probably on the Sandbox team, the most expensive is a subclass.
Yeah.
And then
and a weapon archetype. Those are
and a weapon
those are really
archetype.
close together.
And then under that would be exotic gear, so an exotic piece of armor, exotic weapon. So, it takes a long time.
What is a long time actually equate to roughly? Like let's say,
man, this is like being in a meeting with producers.
Yeah. Yeah, but what do you mean by long?
like
Well,
a
it
year,
depends.
2 years, 3 years, you know?
That's a tricky question to answer because a lot of times we have a whole team of artists, so you can have a bunch of irons in the fire at the same time. But I would say my gut is telling me 4 months.
That's probably about right to get it all tuned up.
A chunk of exotic weapons is going to take you about 4 months.
Wow.
So that's not one gun takes. It's not one exotic weapon takes 4 months, and then the next one takes another 4 after that. It's like, okay, for this release, we're going to do.
You're working on
like
in parallel.
3-4 new exotics and then 2 reprises, right? And that chunk of time is going to be like 4 to 5 months, and then there's always surprises. There's always like this experience that I had in mind that is really clean in my mind, and that I can already imagine how to set up all the content and data to make it go this way. You find some edge case, and you're like, wait, this doesn't work the way I thought it would, and then all of a sudden you're down the rabbit hole, and it's just
or you could make it, and it's not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, for every good exotic weapon that comes out, and you can air quotes good even, like it's still like there were X number of failure states long before that, right? So you try a thing and it just falls flat on its face. So, and then you get into did it fall flat on its face because I'm not giving you enough feedback to tell you that the perk is working, or is it because the perk is bad? Is the perk even working? I can't tell. Can I not tell because I can't tell, or is it not working, right? Like it's all over the place.
Yeah, a good example is the Telesto reprise that came out in Curse of Osiris. I thought it'd be relatively straightforward and easy to bring back Telesto. But we also like to, when we do an exotic reprise, we like to give it a little sparkle, like do a paint job on it, like something, like make it a little bit better than it was before, a little bit different. And so the thing I wanted to do with Telesto is in D1 Telesto, you'd fire the projectiles on the ground and they would just sit there for a certain amount of time and then explode. And I wanted them to sit there for a long amount of time, and then if an enemy got close to it, then they would detonate. And I also wanted you to be able to shoot them to have them explode, so you could actually set a trap.
That's
right.
Cool.
And we have a bunch of tech in the game that already does that. But for some reason, when I tried to hook it up to these Telesto projectiles, it just didn't work. And it ended up becoming this it just became weeks and weeks and weeks of pulling my hair out, getting engineers to help me, getting production engineers to help me. It was just it was super complicated and totally came in at the last minute when I thought it didn't need to. I thought it'd be pretty clean and simple to do that.
And that wasn't even the initial pitch, right? Like I feel like there was 1 or 2 things before that you thought you might do too, and then one we even tried and we're like, it's not really good enough.
Yeah.
And that was still time that had passed right before getting to the thing that was going to be the thing that then wouldn't work, right?
Yeah.
So it's a struggle.
But how many exotics landed on the cutting room floor, or the were cut away, essentially?
It's
not a ton.
The answer ranges from not a ton to infinite, because we work on a thing until it's good enough, right? And then we'll ship it. But the good enough state might be in completely separate design from where you started. And so it feels like, well, we don't really cut any. We just make them, we build them until we're happy with where they are, and then we ship them. But the thing that it started out doing, it might not do at all anymore. And so there are numerous failures along that path that are that don't make you drop the entire gun, right? I can't think of.
There's a D2 fusion rifle that we cut. And Wardcliff Coil was actually supposed to come out during Taken King, and that didn't make the cut, and we shelved that for a long time and eventually brought it back for D2. And then there's been the flip side too, the class specific weapons from Taken King, the 3 exotics, Fabian Strategy and Tlaloc and Ace of Spades. Those were originally legendary guns. And then Greg and I just got really inspired when we were making those. We made some cool class specific perks, and then people started playing with them, and they're like, these are really good. And I was thinking these could maybe be exotic. And I remember going to talk to Tyson, the investment lead at the time. I was like, I think these can be exotic. And we were like finishing each sentence, like we should make them exotic. Like, yeah. So yeah, it's happened the other way too, where like some custom legendary gun was like good enough. We're like, I think we can get this the exotic label, and players would like it.
Yeah,
that's cool. What
we never ship the version of Icebreaker that explodes in your hands if it ever heats. For example,
that was really gonna happen.
That was really that
was talked about for a while. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Cool.
I was talking, I think it was the last podcast, I was talking about how like when I first got that weapon, I actually thought at some point it was going to kill me because of the label.
Yeah, that's because it was basically built to do that.
If you ever bring it back,
this is not a great experience. And so
that's awesome. I got one more design question because I'm curious about this process. You guys said that like a very expensive process also is a new archetype, and I was wondering in the inception of Destiny, how long did it take you guys to settle on the archetypes that shipped with the game? Because you said like the spreadsheet came really fast, where you had a whole bunch of list of things that could go in the system. What was the process like to actually land on the archetypes that eventually shipped?
In D1, like all the way back.
Yeah, D1, or if it's easier to talk about D2, either way, I find it a fascinating design process.
I mean, the most fun story out of that is that the fusion rifle started as a submachine gun.
Wow.
And it was actually in code for a long time called submachine gun. But we realized we had a bunch of ballistics guns and nothing super spicy, interesting new. And so we looked at the swath of things and was like, if we had to get rid of one of these, because you don't want to ship too many because it's hard to keep up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make a better gun, what would you do? And so we sacrificed the submachine gun to the gods and turned it into a laser blaster, because I didn't know what I wanted it to be. I just knew it was going to be a laser weapon. And so I literally cut purposely the cheesiest possible name so that we would have to do something better. And for a long time in script, it was called Laser Blaster. And then, the fusion rifle was born. And that took a while because we had to figure out, like, we had to find a thing that nobody had really done before and figure out something.
It was so unique to Destiny.
Yeah, absolutely.
So fun to use
that was a lot of effort to get it there. It did not start that way. But it turned out really well in the end, but took a long time.
Is that why every time we got a DLC, data miners told us there were submachine guns in Destiny?
Yep.
That's so fascinating.
100%.
That's amazing.
And so there are things like that go down a decent amount, like the grenade launchers and sidearms. We experimented with for a long time as well. We took a shotgun and had an artist have us be allowed to break it in half. So we made a breech load shotgun that fired a single projectile that exploded, and that was our grenade launcher.
Yeah, Josh and I put together an SMG and a sidearm and a grenade launcher that we originally intended to ship with House of Wolves. And then it was like that was too much. And then we didn't realize it at the time, but like some other very smart people around us were like, you guys are shooting yourselves at the foot if you do 3 new architectes for one DLC. Like,
and you can never
spread that out.
But additionally, it puts pressure on not just us. Like we could get it done, but maybe the art team can't, right? Because they have to build a significant number of things, and so it's just a matter of, or the audio team constantly have to come in at the last minute anyway. And so there's just all these factors that change when and where you can put a thing. But we kept wanting to do it. We kept wanting to have grenade launchers there. We wanted to bring back some machine guns. So some have been around a lot longer than you.
Where's an exotic born? Is it born out of like a cool idea for like what a weapon would do? Is it born out of like an awesome piece of art that you guys get that just deserves to be an exotic? Like, is it a combination of a bunch of things?
All of those things. Yeah. Sometimes they draw a piece of concept, or somebody builds a weapon, or like that is sweet. Like, we're gonna take that. Sometimes we come up with a perk idea and then we like frame it around a fantasy that build something. In the case of The Last Word, that started with an animation. It was the pistol flip animation, and I wanted it. I was like, I want that animation, but I'm not gonna do that on every hand cannon. we could use that on an exotic, right?
Yeah, and then it was like, what if we did the fanfire?
Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's such a
So,
beautiful gun. Like
Yeah.
that fulfilled a really specific fantasy, and I
Yes.
love weapons like that. That it's like it makes me feel like a space cowboy. I get to jump
Yeah.
around and fire really fast.
A
Like,
good
that's
example. Good example of the other way too is Touch of Malice was concept art. Like, when we were ramping up on Taken King, and I was looking at a concept art. Is just like we could do maybe some of these with exotic weapons. And I was just looking at these pictures, and I saw a picture of Touch of Malice, and I was like, I don't even know what that is, but it's so cool and mysterious and weird that I was just like totally drawn to it. It's like, we have to do that. I don't know what to do. And it took us a long time to figure out how that gun was going to play.
And then you heard the story of Queen Breakers, right? Like we had an idea for the sniper fusion rifle sniper, and so we made it the charged sniper, but we didn't have a model thing at the time, right? We were just trying out a thing, and that was the case of, could it be an archetype one day? Like, maybe could it be an archetype for this release? No way in hell, right? And so, like, I guess we could make it an exotic. That means we get to do one. Like, we could do that, right? And so, like, that's how those sort of things come together.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how often do you guys come up with a weapon that ultimately doesn't fall in the archetypes that you currently have, that is essentially birthing a new archetype, or just is a one-off in the universe?
It's pretty rare.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, we're usually we're pretty bound by the what the tech can do in the game, and because we're for the most part responsible, we're like, okay, we're gonna work within this constraint space. Like, let's try and keep our ideas in this frame of space that's gonna work. And like a good example of like when we were able to break out of this, like D2 with Cold Heart, for a long time we'd wanted proper laser beams that they're not faked. It's an actual like ray that persists in the world and can move with where the player's aiming. And we got that for D2. It was like, okay, we need to start, like, combatants team actually uses that tech a lot. I don't know if players understand that, but like a whole bunch of our combatants started using that tech. To do cool stuff. And then we're like, yeah, we got to make some laser guns out of that tech.
Yeah,
awesome.
the Minotaur weapons.
Rifles. Versus fusion rifles that fire X number of shots, right? Like we used to fake it by just firing really fast, and so like our way of making a true laser beam would have been like, well, we can fire 30 frames like over and over again and sort of draw out a beam, but then like when you do this, you can notice because it's jaggy, right, and it feels bad, and so we basically scrapped that idea and went a different way, which ended up being fusion rifles, and then later came back to like, hey, we're gonna get real beam tech, and like that means we can finally make these guns, right?
Cool.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Really cool.
Lauren asks, what's the difference between target acquisition and aim assist?
Nothing.
absolutely nothing.
Target acquisition was the fancy fiction term we used to just address what it is in game without being too gamey about it, right? Like, we wanted it to feel like it was still some sort of like
Thematically appropriate.
yeah, some sort of like element to the actual weapons that like I don't know, maybe like like the helmet that you're wearing has some sort of like target acquisition tech in it that's like helping you like aim it right. Like, it was more just like fancy designer talk than it was us trying to confuse players.
Yeah. Pope's gone.
Pope left. Yeah, he was done with that question.
He's had enough.
Yep.
I'm out.
Nil says the patch cadence in the last couple of months has been great. Did you consider to keep that going? No need for a complete sandbox overhaul, but some changes every month would be so good and keep the game fresh.
So yes, we totally agree, and we are going to try faster and more reliable with when we patch the game. The truth is, like, there's just a bunch of massive releases at any given time that we're working. It's a matter of finding prioritizing those against everything else, like I was saying earlier, and so it actually takes a large amount of work to do those patches, and so doing the one-offs is interesting, and we're going to try and work in more of that stuff. Like in the case of Warmind, we kind of hopped on their wagon and we did the exotic stuff, but we fixed like a handful of bugs, right? It was like, hey, this will make the experience better, but it wasn't, like you're saying, it wasn't intended to be a pass like the month before that. And so I think we're just trying to find a rhythm to be able to put those things out, and I think we just want to, we want to be active and be there when players need us to be. the interesting thing is like players probably don't know this, but it takes like games like for us, there are weeks that go by between the last time that we touch it and when you guys get your hands on it, right? And so like there's real time there that is used for both testing, but also building the final release build, getting it certified through the sources and getting it out and into everybody's hands. And so some of us being able to act fast, it's like trying to speak to somebody on like a Skype service when you have just a little bit of a delay, right? And you're like constantly like, right? And so it feels like that occasionally, but we're starting to get that down and to get better at it. But that's why we've previously wrapped it up into these bigger updates, because it's a little bit easier to like land a big chunk and to try and poke surgically at a single thing when there's going to be a couple of weeks between the last known event and when you update it. Or at least leave it long enough that you understand, like, this is clearly an issue that is not going to go away. Let's fix it, right? So, yeah. But that's a long way around saying we're definitely trying to get better at it. We hope that we're going to get significantly better at it. We apologize that it still takes time to do some of these things, but yeah.
Chris, I got to say, though, like over the last 6 months, the level of communication, like along with the constant patches coming out, but the level of communication when you guys just talk about what you're planning on doing, like it makes the community feel like so much more involved. And like, I don't know, it's been a different experience kind of being a Destiny fan over the last, I'd say since February, than like in the time before that. It's been a real improvement. It's been a marked one, I think, for everybody. It's really been nice.
That's clearly something we've been actively trying to work on. And one thing that we is just that, like, hey, like we can at least get out there and say we're working on this thing or we're thinking about it, right? Like that at least makes people feel better. Like, hey, they know, right? They're clearly like talking about it and doing something versus we just stay dark. It feels like I don't know if they know or they don't, right? Do they care? Like, are they out there? And so actively trying to do a much better job there.
Yeah.
Like even with like the sniper rifle glitch that you mentioned earlier, like knowing the process and knowing how difficult it was, like we knew you were working on it. We knew it was hard to do. Yeah, we weren't happy with where sniper rifles were, but we knew like it helped us, wait basically, but also feel like, okay, they're listening. It's not like, we're just like talking to the void out here.
Yeah.
It was
exactly.
That's what causes the most frustration in people is they have all these things that they're constantly frustrated with or they want to see a change. And it's like, am I just banging my head against the wall? Or do they even know? What are their goals? So I think having you guys come out and just be like, yeah, look, we are totally talking about that. That's something we're discussing. We know about that. It kind of allows players to breathe a little bit and be like, okay, they know about that. It's on their wall. I understand now. I can go worry about something else.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
The more communication, the better, because as a fan, when I have no idea why, or even if it's like recognize that something is a problem, then it creates an internal kind of like, well, I don't know what's going on. But when there's like communication opened up about that, it makes things just feel so much better for the future, thinking, okay, that's being worked on. I know that they feel the same way about it that I feel about it. It just makes it better.
Definitely.
It's a group think as well. Like the information gets disseminated that when somebody starts getting negative about the game, and there's more people that will be in the position of saying no, they're communicating with us and they're working on it. It's just without that, you don't get that sort of voice as well.
No, you get the opposite, right? You get the like theory breeding that is probably not at all what's happening, but people start to sell themselves on what it is. I think there's some point we realized we had to get over that is like, we didn't want to overpromise. We didn't want to say things were coming and then not deliver on them. And then I think at the very beginning, those sorts of things can get taken out of context and amplified, and it feels bad and everybody's unhappy. But once you get over that hump and you realize like, oh no, like they are talking to us and they totally called their shot and they're doing this thing here, or they at least said we couldn't get to it there and we're going to push it back to this next release, and then they got it to us, right? Like I think a lot of those concerns start to fade away because then people just come to understand like, oh no, we can trust them, like they're going to do the thing and they'll tell us that they're not gonna, right? Like
to put a roadmap out there, knowing that you might not hit some of those marks too.
Yeah.
Like I could see like that could be a real problem.
It was very scary. It was very scary, I would say.
But it is appreciated by the community.
Yeah, I'm glad. There were definitely times, like completely honestly, where like the roadmap would get published and I hadn't seen it until it was like on Bungie.net, and I'd look at it and be like, "You're promising what? When? Oh my god!" Like, and I have to be like, do they know I can't do that work in this amount of time? Like, oh gosh. Like, and I think it was the Exotic Masterworks got like pushed back, I think, when we originally were trying to get it in sooner.
Yeah. It's
so
just,
it's like,
I think we both sides had to learn to trust that process.
Yeah,
right?
it's a little bit hairy for everybody.
Yeah, I was gonna ask actually. That's maybe that is the answer to this question, but like if you can expand on it, like how difficult, because your guys' team is huge. Obviously, there's a lot of people working on the game. Tons of them.
The full team.
Yeah,
Sure,
and I imagine part of the reason for the communication publicly being a problem at times is because there are so many people working on the game. And how do you funnel all those thoughts and suggestions, and we're listening, or it becomes we're listening as opposed to actual roadmaps and stuff. Like, how has that been a struggle for you guys in your team, knowing that communication is important and we want it, but are you able to openly talk all the time about it, or do you always have to have like a chain that you have to go through, or do other people have to go through chains and stuff? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel so. Yeah, part of the answer to that is that we just had to get over the hump and like figure out that we're going to publish these roadmaps. We're going to say we're going to do a thing. We're not afraid to say we're not going to hit this and move it around. And then you all learn to like look at that and say like, yeah, that's okay. Like they said, they're going to deliver this thing and they're going to try and nail it here. And enough of those things hit that sometimes things move, and that's just how it works, right? But like in the end, we all know what we're doing. And I think that's the most important part. I think like there's stuff that we still want to. Justin Truman does a really good job of saying this in a way that makes total sense, and I'm probably gonna screw it up. But like
the boat thing,
I don't know.
All right, anyway, go ahead.
All right, it is we're still building a game that we want to delight and surprise players. I think it's the way he says it, which is totally true. Like we don't want to talk about everything before it lands, because one of the things we want to bring back is secrets, for example, right? And so like we can't just say everything we're doing, because we want you to get the game and not know it. We want to give you enough detail to know that you want to read the novel, but not enough that you don't need to read the novel, right?
Of course.
Like we need to land that sweet spot. And so I think it's just writing that line. And so we talk about stuff like, hey, like the weapons changes are on the roadmap, so I know that I can mention those, but I'm not going to say exactly how we're going to do them yet, because one, I kind of want players to be surprised when we do announce it, which we'll have time to talk about those things. But also there is still that very real thing that things change, right? And so like we want to be able to provide enough information that you guys feel like you totally understand what we're going, where we're doing, what our goals are, but hold back enough details, depending how far out a thing is, to give us room to maneuver without like saying like, you're going to get this. Turns out that didn't work at all, right? And so now we're going to go this way. And so trying to give just enough information so that everybody feels like they understand where Bungie is and understands what Bungie's building, and hold back just enough that people are still surprised and have those moments of like seeing a thing for the first time together as a group. Because like even in the case of like Dre, which was incredible and it was awesome being in that room, was just everybody seeing that trailer for the first time. Because everybody has everybody has those.
That was electric.
Like everybody has those moments, and like we don't want to lose that stuff either, right? Like there's a sweet spot in there of like making sure that everybody's on the same page and still being able to like get that group audible gasp out of people when they see a thing that they didn't expect.
And also,
I think that's why design goals are really good, because like with the Go Fast update, for example, it was like, we're going fast. We didn't know anything about how that was going to happen. We just knew that things were getting faster. So that's like, okay, well, as a community, we want to be faster. You guys are making things faster. Okay, let's see what happens.
Sign me up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think design goals are a great way to like just talk to the community about how the game is looking. Like Watson Pope, you were both there when we were talking about a hot topic.
The thing.
At the summit.
The thing, huh?
And we were able to steer it away from specific solutions and specific problems and just talk about it in terms of like design goals and player experience goals.
These are all the positives, these are the negatives. Right?
And what you guys did that first night and coming back the next day, with actionable items off of that just blew my mind. I mean, that was the epitome of what that summit in my mind was about, and
Yep.
really resonated with me.
Hobbit Weed 420 No Scopes asks,
Is that really his name?
when the Thorn comes back, will it have damage over time?
When the Thorn comes back, I see what Hobbit we 420 no scope XX something. I see where he's going with that. I don't know. We'll have to see if we choose to bring Thorn back. We'll have to take.
Honestly, Pope, I want you to weigh in on that. You were one of the biggest, most outspoken people about how much you hated Thorn. Like, if Thorn were to come back, like, how much does that bother you?
Well, I think that the reason why it bothered me so much is the place where it was at, like getting hit by a bullet or two bullets and then watching yourself just die a slow, miserable death. You know, that just didn't. That I like damage over time. I love the concept in short, I think it has a place in the game very much. It's lore. It fascinates me. I think now where the game is with the abilities and your ability to counter some of that stuff, it has more place in D2 than it did in D1, in my opinion. So yes, I would like to see it back in a way. And damage over time is not the way it's handled now in D2. It's much more realistic or reasonable. Or
Thorn was such an outlier, though. It had unlimited range, right? You could snipe people across the map.
Yeah.
It was a 2-shot kill. It also slowed down gameplay because it took you like 30 seconds to get your health back.
Mm-hmm.
It was just such an outlier.
You can counter abilities can counter the bleed, right?
Yeah, you could
and,
drop
you
a
can
health
stop
pool.
it.
You could eat a nade. You could pop
eat a grenade. You can
pop your barrier.
There's things that you
dodge
can
with the
do.
new exotic
Dodge,
helmet?
yes, dodge with the new hunter exotic.
So there's ways of countering it. Then when it was in D1, it was just like a death sentence, went around sheepishly to like wilt away and die, you know, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So
I have very fond memories of the House of Wolves meta. It was like, even though Thorn was a pain in the ass, I used Thorn and it 2-tap people. It was great. It was
you were one of those.
Messenger.
I was,
Messenger.
but I loved you had the Messenger, you had Red Death, you had like Last
Red
Word.
Death was great,
right?
Because it would counteract Thorn.
I had a Doctrine. The Doctrine of Passing.
The Doctrine was great. Like,
my jam.
There were all these options, and what stood out was passionate people that were either for or against Thorn, instead of being like, well, I don't know what I want to use. You know, like it just felt like there was a lot of options, even though those were hated.
I mean, Last Word, for
And that's the
example.
key.
I mean, think about it. When is the Last Word coming back?
Well, Pope, if we decide to bring back the Last Word, we'll have to look into it.
Okay.
Mr. Macalito says, so working at Bungie requires a lot of energy. Does Bungie supply the employees with cookies? What kind of cookies?
Yes.
Are they store-bought cookies or baked by colleagues? Thank you for all the wonderful game that you truly brought thousands of hours of joy to me and so many beautiful people.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
There are many cookies.
Yep.
Sometimes they're employee baked. Those are usually. Sometimes they come from. If it's a special day, they bring in cookies from a bakery. Those are
special
great.
cookie day.
Worst.
Yeah, what's special cookie day? Is that you got yelled at less on
It could
the
be
internet
team
today?
meeting day.
No, it's
It could
special-
be there's a lot of things.
That's the day they came up with Colony. Special cookie day.
So-
You make the
We
colony.
give you colony and cookies.
Colony and cookies. There's fucking
There are-
spiders and they chase you around.
Valentine's
I
Day.
got spiders on me right now.
Chocolate covered strawberries run around and blow people up.
Exactly. And then, there are. I'm trying to answer this very serious question with very serious answer. There are also soft patch cookies that you can get most days in the cabinet.
I'm an Oreo guy. We got Oreos.
We do have Oreos.
Mm.
He ever made.
On
That
really
kitchen-
good days, I can find a moon pie. But that's
That kitchen
hit or
is
miss.
awesome. Like, you can just literally go in there and get any. As a coffee addict, I envy that space.
It's good.
Nutter butters.
There are nutter
Wow.
butters. There are those weird wafer things that are basically pure sugar that they've
Mhm.
managed to appear like a cookie, but they just literally melt them out, like those things. A lot of cookies.
Slick Gray says, assuming you didn't have a car, if someone gave you a VW Beetle with big eyelashes as headlights, would you drive it? The eyelashes cannot be removed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think you have to. At that point, you lean into it. Like you find ways to go even further than that, right? Like
You're
you've got to
damn
have
proud
the
of your
car.
free car.
Yeah,
That's what I say.
exactly. Yeah,
You like my car? It was free. How much did yours cost?
that's right. And can I make that? Can I get the eyelashes to move? Like, can I have when I honk, it looks surprised very
Yeah.
briefly?
I can
Ooh.
only
That
hope
would be
for such
amazing.
future
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Shaquille Everett asks, when using a public restroom, do you wash your hands before or after you do your business?
That depends. So that depends.
Depends on the
Always
day, right?
after. Always after.
Depends
But
on.
depending what the door handle looked like, sometimes before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like I'm gonna wash. It was wet. I don't know why it's wet. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wash my hands. Yeah. You have to answer this.
You'll never know.
You'll never know.
Wow,
You'll never know.
mysterious.
All right, final question of the night. Very serious one. Farrell Bombolan says, how many full-grown coyotes do you think you could fight off before having to retreat from exhaustion? You don't need to kill the coyotes, just to be clear. You just need to survive the encounter. You can't.
Encounters or
You can also choose if the coyotes come at you one at a time or as a group.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So if you could ninja fight the coyotes,
One at a
double
time.
digits. I feel like
Double digits?
How
double
many?
digits.
I don't know,
Coyotes.
12.
Yeah.
I feel like 12. I mean, because they're not coming at you at the same. They're coming at you at the same time. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's
And
like
let's
4.
let's be honest here. Coyotes are not. They're just glorified, dogs.
They're
Right?
not big.
No,
Yeah, but
they're,
dogs
they're a
can be,
pack.
like-
They hunt in packs.
But they're coming at you in one
That's
time.
the thing.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you have a huge advantage on a coyote with biomass, but like in order to leverage your biomass, you kind of have to fall on one or like take it down, and then you're totally like
You're exposed to everything.
yeah. Then all the other ones can just like
Yeah.
pile
Oh
on,
yeah.
Yeah.
and like you have to protect your neck, but you gotta like
Yeah.
you can't just kick
Seems
and punch,
pretty
right? Like you gotta
exhausting.
crush them a little.
Yeah,
bit,
you gotta
right?
keep them from. Yeah.
You gotta apply some pressure.
I'm gonna say 12 one at a time. No more than 4 if they're coming at me in a pack.
Is this in a quick play or competitive?
Yeah, is there
Do I
is there
have
yellow?
radar?
Have you been
Radar.
skill-based match made against these coyotes, or are they?
Yeah.
No radar. You're not going to know.
No,
which
oh,
person
yeah,
you're coming from.
yeah. That's dangerous.
There's no radar.
If there's no radar, not 6 maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I did not expect John to use the term biomass twice. So,
Relative biomass,
yeah.
There is one last question though, Brian. Right?
What's that?
It's in the Skype chat.
Oh. Why don't you ask it if you know where it is?
I'm looking
You
at
ask
it.
the questions.
Why don't you ask
Brian.
it?
You're the
You ask
question guy,
questions.
Briar.
You are the
Question
question
guy.
guy.
All right. I'm
There's
reading
two
up.
que-
I'm reading up. I'm trying to find the question.
In Skype.
Oh boy.
Adam Kamiri says,
Oh,
as a
there's
preface,
2 more questions.
wait, hold on.
Oh,
Is this
yeah,
a question?
That's the last one. It's right there.
Oh, just read the goddamn
Miss-
question.
Miss Watts wrote through a.
I wrote you. I
Oh.
wrote you something.
Oh,
Briar.
what's the?
Oh, I got you.
I wrote. Okay.
What
It's
is your
better.
favorite drink and snake?
Yeah.
Drinking snake.
Yeah.
Yes.
We need to know. It's an
We gotta
important
know.
question.
Very important.
What?
So I really like whiskey.
Nice.
I drink a lot of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe my favorite drink is an Irish coffee with Jameson.
Dig
That
it.
combines the thing I drink the most and the thing I like the most. Favorite snake. I've literally never thought about that.
I'll buy you a moment.
Yeah,
You
let
don't
me-
say.
Yeah, maybe. Old. Oh God, I don't know. It's toss up between old fashioned and margarita.
Nice.
What was that? What was that? A good noise?
yeah, no, I like it.
Hmm.
I'm not a huge fan.
There was
of
a-
it.
I mean, what kind
Have
of
you guys ever
margarita
looked
are
up
you
old
getting?
fashioned on Urban Dictionary?
No,
No, don't do it.
I don't know that I want. Okay.
One of your guns is named after that as well. So
Well,
you
yeah.
Just so
probably
you know.
really don't
You
want
should
to
probably look it up.
I'm just curious.
Favorite snack though. Hey.
We're judging you right now with your snake choices.
Yeah, it's important.
Okay, I think I have an answer for favorite snake.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna go with a king cobra
Okay.
Nice.
because they like the hood and like the rising up is like such a unique signature to that snake. It's just like really cool.
Did you say it's
But I think-
exotic?
I would say, yeah.
It's an
Actually,
exotic
that's how I got thinking. I was like, okay, if snakes were exotic weapons, like, why would I do that? But I think the thing that I think is the coolest about the king cobra is like so brutal and like just brute force with their bite. Like they don't do the quick like snap and inject and then like wait for you to die. They just like they do the thing where they bite and they clamp. And then they just like pump you full of poison for as long as they can.
Really?
They just like yeah. Cobras
They
when they
won't let
strike,
go.
they don't do a strike and then like let go. They grab and hold and they just like eject all of the venom in their venom sac through their teeth. They're just like, I'm gonna kill
like
this
to
thing.
look you in the
And
eye
that's-
when they're killing you.
Yeah, and that's why they're so dangerous. It's not necessarily because their venom is potent. It is potent, but it's more because they just like go. It's like everything. It's just like, I'm gonna kill this thing. Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
This sounds like a new exotic weapon or armor piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
mhm.
I might go with
That's
king
description.
snake, eater of other snakes.
Oh, that's a good one.
Nice.
That is
That's
a
a
good
really
one.
good one.
Yeah.
It's great.
Guys, I want to thank you for being here tonight. This was a really fun conversation. It was really informative. I really want to thank you for your candor too. Like listening to kind of how you guys approach this and how you guys like go the thought processes, and it's been really fascinating. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's fun.
I think I talked about it earlier about the summit, about how great it has, such a positive experience it is to have a conversation that is about game design with an enthusiast of the game. So yeah, I want to extend the thanks right back to you guys for giving us a platform to have that conversation with you guys for many people, because I think it's great to talk to you guys about the game as well. So
Very cool.
Shout out
Well,
to Audit League.
we'll have you on next month then.
Once a month.
Let's just make it a thing. You know.
Once a month. Sam.
All right, just think about it. You don't have to answer it right
Yeah,
now.
we'll-
but,
we'll think
no,
about it.
just think about that. Yeah. All right. Tef, do you start?
Oh yes, yeah. So this is the end of the podcast. You can find me at Teft on Twitter if you want to talk to me on Twitter, and catch my streams twitch.tv/TeftyTeft. Usually start around 6 p.m. Pacific time, Friday through Wednesday, and I have a YouTube channel with some stream archives.
I'm Briar Rabbit. You can find me streaming daily at 1 p.m. Eastern. Just look up Briar Rabbit. Occasionally YouTube video, or talk to me on Twitter.
And I'm Miss 5000 Watts. You can find me on YouTube and Twitch to watch me play the games. And on Twitter, you can find me asking Josh about in-air accuracy. That's all. That's it. Just that.
You guys, tell them where they can find you.
I'm Josh Hamrick. I'm the design lead for Sandbox at Bungie. You can find me on Twitter at Josh_Hamrick. And otherwise, you can find me either at Bungie, at home, or in the gym.
John Wisniewski. My Twitter handle is all one word, Shark Eats Man.
You like sharks?
I like sharks.
I like sharks.
I'm either at Bungie working on this game, at home hanging out with my family, or doing some rock and roll music stuff in the evenings.
That's right.
Check out Sand Rider, band Sand Rider.
All right.
To check it
Cool.
out.
And this has been Pope Bear. You can find me on Twitter at Pope Bear, or lurking in these guys' streams. Next week we have a no guest podcast. It's just going to be us chatting about our experiences with
Raid
the
layer.
game and talking about the raid layer. I know these guys are going to be trying for that world's first with a great team.
Yeah.
Uh,
We're great. We are a well-oiled machine. We're very professional.
Right. And on the 24th, we have Dr. Lupo coming in to sit down and talk to us about what's been going on in his life. And then on the 31st, we're going to be talking about private matches and some competitions that are happening with our PvP tournament, directors, Anubis and Farcog. So that's the round out the month. This is a shout out to all of our patrons who help support us. You give us opportunities to have great guests and do everything we do. So without you guys and all the Twitch subscribers, we couldn't do this. So just thank you very much. And also check out our giveaway. We're giving out a if you're listening to this on the podcast, just go to our Twitter channel. We're giving away a Scuff controller and a 1-month subscription to Humble Bundle, where you can get Destiny 2 on PC or console if you want, for like $12.
And it all goes to charity.
I feel like
It
he's
all goes
judging
to charity.
Yeah.
So I know some people have been wanting to switch, and opportunity would be a great one. So go ahead and throw your hat in the ring and follow us. There's a little link on our Twitter account, and you can go see if you win yourself a custom controller. I think that's it, guys.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next week. I'm going to let the credits roll, and then we'll come back for reading out subs. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.